subsequent bulletins. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawokov?
I can't say it very well.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM, Nyeri.
All right, the streets are looking really good this Thursday morning. The CBD looks like it's building up and it will continue in just a short while. Mombasa Road also has begun its thing. But apart from that, it looks like things are just starting to pick up. Getting into the city from Westlands is building up right now. Thika Road looks absolutely great. Are you out now? It would be the time to get where you're going without too much of a headache. Thursday morning looks like it's going to start off just right without too much traffic. But then again, we have to wait and see how it unfolds. Help us out here, guys. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127. Let's see how we can keep things moving this Thursday morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
Yes, it's 6 minutes after 6 a.m. And a very good morning and welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. How are you, City Muga?
I'm actually well. It's you I'm concerned about. Everything okay?
Yeah?
Is everything okay?
Yes. Why? Sure. What did you hear?
No, it's not what I heard.
Do you have some
someone.
information?
It's what I heard from you. I was just wondering.
Do you have some info?
No, not info. I'm dealing with facts here.
You can share.
No, it's not anything that I need to share. It's something I just need to continue observing closely before I can comment. But let me just put it in a positive light. You have begun the day on a high note.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you well?
Yes, I am well.
Very, very good. Very good.
Yes.
Jambo?
Jambo mingi.
Oh, yeah. What did you put in that tea this morning?
I didn't have tea, actually.
That's why.
That's a problem.
Why are we setting off that there's a problem?
Right even there. That question right there.
Why does
early in the morning and you are discussing problems. Early
Why does there have to be a problem?
See, again, she's brought up the topic of a problem.
You know, you could actually be a very good psychologist, CT.
But what prevents me again?
Do tell. Good morning.
Good morning, good people.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
And Eric, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Is it? Okay.
Good to see you this morning.
Same here.
And a very good morning to everybody who's tuned in today. Asanteni sana for joining us. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. It's the second day of September 2021. Some conversations that we're going to have today include looking at the papers. I think we will not spend a lot of time on how many police officers are deployed to guard chicken. We will talk about things that matter. For example, yesterday there had been an order for closure of a hospital in Ruai. And then we hear that the order was rescinded at some point later.
Yep.
What were the reasons for this order of the closure? We will talk about that. And what was the implication, not just on the government and the proprietors and management of the hospital, but the patients in that hospital? Mm-hmm. We'll raise that conversation at 7 o'clock. The Roy Family Hospital, because it got into some problems and some trouble with the government. We'll talk about that. And then there's a whole issue of women and renewable energy, and we want to have that conversation as well. So we understand the problem of biomass. When the government decided that, see this tax that we levy on gas, it's going up. You see this tax that we levy on kerosene,
Up.
so all those things, the impact of that is people look for the alternative, readily available source of fuel. What's that going to be? It's going to be firewood, charcoal, and such. What does that do to our forests? And what's the impact of that? As the whole globe is heading towards renewable energy and clean energy, where are we as a country? We'll have a conversation about that and the impact that this is having on not just all of us, but specifically on women, and the women who are now playing a part in moving the country towards renewable energy. They'll join us in the studio at 8. Big conversations. Yesterday we had 2 hours of shall we call it deep revelations of what's happening in the country with regards to COVID-19. It is there, it's real, it's affecting not just, what we say, then affected counties are Nairobi. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And people are really, really dealing with COVID in their own ways. But what is the government saying? What are the latest numbers now?
Okay, so let's look at what's happening. And, just in terms of vaccinations, yesterday, interestingly enough, there were a number of people who complained about the fact that they went to certain facilities and did not get. And then there were also calls across social media for certain centers where vaccinations are available, but nobody is lining up. So one thing is clear, that there is no centered flow of information in terms of what is available for vaccines in the country at the moment. But before we get into that, let's look at the numbers that we saw in the country yesterday. 1,018 going up, 1,018 positive cases from a sample size of 9,347. That puts the country's positivity rate from that sample at 10.9%. There was also 633 recoveries yesterday and 13 deaths having been recorded. We're looking at cumulative tests in the country now of just above 2.3 million. A total confirmed case number of 236,881. Total recoveries of 224,270. And unfortunately, deaths of 4,739. That's what we're looking at in the country now. That's what it looks like. The vaccines are here. More are expected in this month of September. They were to be here at the end of August. But that big batch, the big batch of the 13 million is supposed to have been here at the end of August. So we're just at the round about the
we're still in
corner of that.
August.
We're still okay. We're still in
Until
August.
which date in September will we still be in August?
Probably
Until December 31st, we're still in August.
Because September will not have come to an end.
No.
Okay.
It's always September. So we're waiting for that to come. There is talk that once that comes, we'll be able to ease a lot of this pressure that is now on the system in terms of when can we get them, where can we get them. But interestingly, people are still asking the questions. If somebody tells you today, CT vaccines are available at XX hospital, the first question is, which one is available?
People are asking that?
Yes. Which one is available there? So there's still a lot of pick and choose going on.
So there's,
I guess the word
I
of,
want Moderna.
Right.
It's
The word of Susan Mochache has not been heeded. Now, when they say, please, in terms of what we're able to provide, come out and get the vaccine.
But her words were never going to be heeded. Look, communication is not just about reading a script and telling people this is the A, B, C, D. Especially if it's from a ministry that people have gotten accustomed to hearing news from. It's, as far as they're concerned, we are still being told the same thing over, even when it's something new and it's something specific. Communication, by its very nature, has to be target specific. Now, if what you're doing is reading the script that other people in that particular ministry have been reading with regards to COVID, irrespective of which aspect of COVID you're talking about, here is where you now distinguish between what is said and what is heard.
True.
So we are not dealing with what the PS said. We are dealing with what people
folks heard.
hear. Yes. The message she had was an important message. One should pay heed to it, but it is not going to be heeded to.
I think we still need to keep putting it out there, folks. You need to go get vaccinated where you can. It'll help matters. I know that a lot more people will be vaccinated once this big number comes in. It would be good to hear, when that will be.
What I'd like to know are the measures that the government is going to put in place to ensure that this drama we always see, we started seeing at the beginning of COVID. PPEs came, then they didn't come. Okay? Equipment came, then they didn't come. That drama seems to be with us. And just when we thought that we're beginning to get over that particular drama, then KEMSA happened. Now we're seeing more drama. 1 point, how many millions are we expecting?
13.
There'll be more drama than you can even spell.
Already with just a few 1 million that we have,
1 million
there's an issue of people are selling vaccines.
Yes. What do you think is going to happen when the
that
13
number
million?
is 13 million?
What do you think is going to happen?
It's a valid question, and I think it is a
Create
concern.
artificial shortage,
Yes.
rise
Plunge
demand.
people into anxiety once
The
again.
usual...
Sell it.
Yes.
And you have no choice but to sell it.
It's a brilliant tactic.
All right, so what are we looking at? Let's really quickly look at world numbers, right? 219,265,651. 4.5 million deaths around the world. The numbers continue to rise in the United States, in India, and we still continue to see that being the case. 40 million cases now in the US, having crossed that 30,000 mark. 40 million cases in the US, 32 million cases in India, 20 million cases in Brazil. Since you last checked, while you were away, Brazil was somewhere down there. Brazil now third in the world with COVID cases. You see that drama that we talked about a couple of months ago in terms of what was happening?
Fruition.
Things have escalated. Much worse now.
No, infinitely worse.
Right. So 6 million cases in a span, 6 million extra cases in a span of 1 month is not,
my friend,
a joke.
No,
right?
it most certainly isn't a joke. But then also, emanating from the world of research, remember, 1 jab depending on the vaccine, 2 jabs depending on the vaccine. It's now being proven by research that people who've gotten that booster shot, they've taken beyond a booster. Those who have even double the recommended vaccination, research is showing positive signs. Positive signs, A, in people who are actually being hospitalized, meaning the very serious cases are reducing significantly. But also, what is also being noted is that the infection rates are getting less, meaning people may be COVID infected, yes, but even the rates of positivity is reducing. Now, when we say that these vaccines are still at an experimental stage, there's only one that has received FDA approval in the US. But even with that approval, remember, there is no medication that is foolproof. What you look at is the percentile of efficacy. Can this thing work up to 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%? And these percentages are often given based on numbers who have received it or who have been tested at that point in time. As more and more people receive it, the statistics tend to change because you then get a clearer and clearer picture of what is actually happening. But what is definite is that the landscape of research is not asleep. They are continuing to try and figure out how best to combat.
To do this thing.
But what, in my mind, is a clear thread, we need to vaccinate as many people as we possibly can.
These stories of booster are not making me comfortable.
Why?
Because I'm wondering, so booster. When will it ever end? And number two, as you talk about the booster shots, and you're talking about a population that's still now getting the first dose of the vaccine, are you seeing the issues here where people receive the vaccines in the country and then they decide, okay, we are gonna...
Yeah, I'm taking 3 to go.
Yeah.
This waiting for dinner. See, said 3 is okay. I'm taking 3. Actually,
I'm going to find my way to the stores.
That's a very valid point.
And so that I can now start getting the booster. There are people who already have the first. They're waiting for the second. There are people who have had the second, and they'll be waiting for new vaccine to come in so they can get their booster. 3 shots before somebody has received their first. You see what I'm saying?
It's a valid concern.
19 minutes after 6. Let's take a break. Okay, are you online? SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We can see some people are already saying that they are online. Let's take a look at the weather, and then we'll say hello to you. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Cloudy conditions this Thursday morning in Nairobi at 14, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Nakuru is clear at 15, highs of 24 and lows of 13. Nyeri, light rain this morning at 14, going to highs of 23. Looking out into Kisumu, it's clear at 18, highs of 29 and lows of 18. And Kakamega is raining this morning at 16, highs of 28, coming down to lows of 15. Let's look out into East Africa, 19 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions in Kampala, highs of 26 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam this morning is clear at 23, highs of 30 and lows of 22. We're looking at cloudy conditions, light rain also in Lagos, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Kinshasa is clear this morning at 23. It goes to highs of 30 and back down to lows of 23. Looking out east in Beijing, it's 28 degrees and sunny, highs of 30 and lows of 20. And in Paris this morning at 19, we'll see then later highs of 25 and lows of 12. Clear conditions, however. It's cloudy in London at 15, highs of 19 and lows of 14. And in New York, a severe thunderstorm warning, 19. It's still late Wednesday night. It'll go to highs of 22 and lows of 16.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's 22 minutes after 6.
94.4.
Very good morning to you wherever you are tuned in, and wherever is...
Wherever is where David is, and he's tuned in this morning and says, good morning, joining the conversation. Kisumu's tuned in with Sir Haron. Becky Odhiambo says, Kisumu's tuned. Good morning, guys. Good morning to you. Patrick Agoyason is tuned in from Mombasa. Now, Dorcas says, good morning. I'm tuned in from the COVID vaccine queue. Good on you. Waiting to get a vaccine this morning. Moses Omondi is tuned in from Nairobi. Linda Quinn, the booster shot is for the immune-compromised people and only with the Pfizer, which the FDA approved. Okay. Waterman Jeffrey tuned in from Minneapolis today. And Nicholas Udida as well is tuned in from Kitale. Pius Ngolua tuned in. Spices are too spiced here. Okay. Ed Gitonga tuned in this morning from Meru. What's the frequency for Meru?
Meru. Where is Meru? Is it in Kenya?
Meru is in Kenya, at least for today.
It's in the mountain.
For today.
Hey, the closest you have is 90.9 from Nyeri.
Voila, 90.9. All right. Okoth tuned in from Lilongwe. Yeah. That one. Shemongwai also tuned in from Nakuru in Rongai. Empire Car Bazaar says, following from Nairobi, serious conversations. Yes, for sure. MJ Moses tuned in from Somalia in Mogadishu. And Renzururu Nason tuned in from Kampala. And tuned in from Nyeri, that's Edu. Kennedy Ogodo says, hi, listening in to you with hustling. Okay, I'm confused.
Hustling
Kennedy
episode in Animal Kingdom.
Animal Kingdom. You're watching from your mansion. Oh, that mansion you talked about the other day. Very good. Ras Bashir Werewa Busia is tuned in this morning as well. We see you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Good morning and karibu.
Karibuni sana sana kila mutu. Siti, today's proverb.
Right.
It wouldn't be the proverb if you didn't say right.
No,
Before
this one isn't.
Right.
It isn't. Yes. It isn't right or wrong here. It is spoiled for choice. All right. Today, let me look at something very simple and straightforward.
See, it's just a proverb. Kwani, what is it?
Well, look, if I'm not cryptic, then it isn't
Surely,
a proverb.
boss.
I must be a bit circuitous. Throw in a little suspense. Then there's drama to the proverb, especially when it's a straightforward, simple proverb like the one I'm about to. Okay. Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand.
Ni hayo tu.
Kwa sasa.
After all that soliloquy and
What do you think all that was for?
Prefacing, embellishment,
Knowledge without water. What?
It's like wisdom in the sand. No, it's the other way around. Water. Sorry.
Knowledge
See
without
what
water.
you've done now. Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand. Talking to people.
Try a third time. Okay. The knowledge.
I'm reading it. Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the
it's
sand.
without wisdom, not without water.
That was Eric's version of the proverb.
Sheesh.
Right.
Okay.
Are you okay? You need a minute.
Okay.
Knowledge. Knowledge, not
knowledge.
Wisdom.
Yes, not water.
It's like water in the sand.
Yes, not water without knowledge.
And it's sand, not sand.
Sand. Sand harvesting. Sand.
Muchanga.
Yeah.
Muchanga.
Changa.
Changarawe.
Yes.
Okay.
Changa being singular. Michanga
Being plural.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mimaji. Let's take a look at the headlines then.
Dun, 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 dun. Matiang'i lists Ruto property under guard. The headline on the Standard: Matiang'i exposes DP property security. After Interior Cabinet Secretary spills the beans on Ruto's vast estate and details of his security, Deputy President's team hits back, denying that some of the assets were his and accusing Matiang'i of spreading falsehoods. 257 is a lucky number. That's the total of the Deputy President William Ruto's security spread across his properties in the country. According to the DP spokesman, David Mugonye, Matiang'i has abused public resources and power to score cheap points in a futile attempt to humiliate and ridicule the DP and his office for political propaganda. Okay. Now, the Interior CS honors the summons to Parliament and lists the DP's property across the country. So he did a bit of homework here. Ruto's office responds, saying deployment of security officers is a preserve of the National Security Council. So the Ministry of Interior yesterday listed all these properties under state security, even as the DP's office refuted ownership of some of them. In a submission to Parliament, CS Matiang'i following summons, listed some properties in the DP's estate, which include hotels, ranches, and of course, a poultry farm. The DP also has 2 homes in Uasin Gishu County. According to the document tabled before the Parliamentary National Security and Administration Committee, the DP also owns 5 helicopters and 2 hangars from the Kwai Islands Development Limited. A hangar is a building, in case you did not know, in which airplanes are repaired or serviced.
Oh, not that thing for clothes.
Oh, you thought it was done for you, does it? He owns 5 hangars and they're bringing it to Parliament.
And they're to be guarded.
You sit in the corner and put your hands up. So, the 5 aircraft and hangars are at Wilson Airport in Nairobi. Estimated cost of 1 helicopter is 300 million what? Shillings.
1 helicopter.
1.
They have to be specific. What kind of helicopter?
Estimated cost.
The one that the DP has.
The ones that he has. Now, the DP owns Western Hotel in Nairobi and Dolphin Hotel in Mombasa, according to the list presented by Matiang'i. Dolphin, according to the government document, sits on a 3-hectare piece of land. Western has been in the eye of a long-running controversy over claims that it is on a public land of 0.77 of hectare parcel opposite Wilson Airport. So you go on and on and on and list the properties. The point of all of this is that at each of these properties, there is
some police officer.
There is some police officer. There is security. There is guard. Contrary to the allegations made, and in view of the tabled evidence, the Deputy President is the most guarded in the history of the country in comparison to previous equivalent office holders. So, he did all of this to basically show you that we've not left him out in the cold. We are making sure that each of his properties, and whether official or personal, are actually guarded, as is the preserve of the person who sits in this office. So he took this painstaking attempt to make sure that this was done. So let's give it to you in numbers, shall we? 4,000 officers. 4,000 is the number of officers protecting VIPs and VVIPs. The ratio of police officers to Kenyans is 1 to 600. Now, guarding the DP, inner security layer, 84 officers, outer security layer, 121 officers, auxiliary security layer, 51 officers. Total is 257. So he has security. Shall we talk
there's
about
inner,
something?
outer,
There's inner, outer, there's auxiliary.
and auxiliary. Okay.
Huge. The most guarded in the history of the country of somebody who sits in that position. Are we together?
Okay. So how many pages is it getting on the Standard?
2, 6, and 7.
All right. The
plus
Nation.
Plus the front page.
Plus the front page. The Nation has the same. Matiang'i unmasks hustler. Page 6 and 7 is dedicated to this particular story. Oh, Matiang'i unmasking hustler. Oh, CS reveals that 4 police officers are deployed to secure chicken farm. Drama and drama. And more drama.
By the way, even Business Daily has it as a headline. So that you understand. Yes, but they say inside Ruto's security.
Yes. However, on page 10, like we were saying yesterday, that's where the issues of you and I come in. Page 10 of the Standard, I'm going to tell you what it says shortly. Let's take a break, take a look at the traffic. Okay? And then we start looking at Mwananchi stories going forward. Once we are done now with the VIP and all the drama that we, the media, claim that this is the most important story of the day. 6:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. In the room is Eric Latif, Nduoko, and C.T. Muga. On the road are many people. Let's find out where they are stuck.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources? Yet we have real challenges in this country.
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so what it looked like half an hour has totally changed now. A lot of traffic there now building up on Jogo Road, heading out towards the city via Landis Road. That's building up also on Langata Road, coming towards Bunyala Road, and that's out inbound to the CBD, quite some there at the roundabout, and then heading out towards Haile Selassie Avenue. That is also building up. So Langata Road then around the Nyeri Stadium roundabout doesn't look too bad right now, but even as I'm looking at it now, things are getting redder and redder. So a lot of traffic out there this morning. It's already building up on Mombasa Road as well, coming off a thicker superhighway at that Pangani joint right there as you connect with Muthui Square, going towards the Pangani underpass. That's where we have some traffic this morning heading out into the city. Everything else is kind of picking up, not too bad right now. That survey area looks pretty good, coming off the southern bypass as well. We're going to watch out for that. We've been told that construction now will increase on Mombasa Road, and that's further down in the direction of the Weybridge, and that comes in from next week. So we need to watch out for that. But for now, it looks as though the traffic on Mombasa Road is bearable, at least for the next 2.7 minutes. Let's see what happens thereafter. Help us out, guys. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
26
FM.
minutes to 7. Are you ready for Kenya Mwananchi stories? August is the deadliest month since COVID-19 outbreak in the country last year. This, if we just go by the figures that are given by the Ministry of Health, not by just looking at how many people are actually dying and being buried by the community. According to the Ministry of Health, 795 people died in August. This compared to 290 in July, 462 in June, and 449 in May. 795 in August. Nyeri Catholic Archbishop Anthony Muheria, who's also the chairperson of the Interfaith Council on the national response to the coronavirus pandemic, criticized the response of the government to the fourth wave of COVID-19. He spoke after the burial of a priest who died from COVID-related complications earlier in the week. He says, "We seem not to follow words with action. The virus has killed many Kenyans in August, with the positivity rate hitting 15%. More than 14 priests at the Archdiocese contracted the virus and were admitted to hospital. 14 in Nyeri Archdiocese alone, Catholic Church. We're not talking about any other denomination. 3 of them are still in the high dependency unit. 1 is in ICU for the 38th day. We have realized the gravity of the situation and decry the recklessness with which Kenyans, especially our leaders, are handling the COVID-19 situation," said Archbishop Muheria. "At a time that many people are dying from this disease, our leaders have found it fitting to relax measures meant to protect us. I've lost a priest. I don't want to lose another. We must get serious when it comes to this pandemic." The number of people allowed at a funeral has been reduced to a maximum of 200. Archbishop Muheria criticized politicians flocking to burials with multitudes of followers. He's appealing to the politicians to stop calling meetings and rallies, advising them to use other channels such as the media to reach their people. Nyeri Governor Muthui said the cold weather and the burden of non-communicable diseases could be the leading causes of the increased number of COVID-19 cases. Remember, Nyeri has very high numbers of non-communicable diseases.
Yes.
And the governor says we have a number of high people with diabetes, cancer, hypertension, and other lifestyle diseases. The chances of dying increase when one contracts this virus. This is what is happening around the country. Okay? COVID is ravaging homes. COVID is spreading in the country. COVID is calling for concerted effort and a lot more to be done. But we are discussing what? We are choreographing a sitting where we say, as you come, so that you come and use the hallowed halls of Parliament, which is protected with whatever you say. So you can come in here and you give the drama of who owns what, how many chicken are being guarded by how many police officers. That is the focus of our leaders. Well, this is what is happening in the country. Are we together? Now, move on, City.
You know, there are two articles. One appeared yesterday in the papers. There's a follow-up of it today. I'm the one who's tying it together.
Okay.
We're talking about situations that affect citizens, okay?
Yes.
Borrowing on Fuliza rises to 1.2 billion shillings daily.
Daily.
1.2
rises by or one rises to?
Rises to.
1.2 billion shillings daily.
Daily.
Wow.
Every single day.
Wow.
Okay? The surge in borrowing comes as households slowly recover from economic knocks. Borrowing from Safaricom's overdraft service rose to 1.2 billion daily in 6 months in June this year, signaling the income shortfalls and having pushed many Kenyans to rely on short-term expensive debts. That one speaks for itself. Someone needs money, this is a place you can get it, and you don't really care very much how much it is that you are going to pay for it. But alongside this story was something that I found, Osman, to be of particular interest. Right? This was something that we should be happy about in regards to what it is that it tells us about our banking sector. But again, you must look at it, okay? The headline was 13 billion bad loan provision cuts lift of bank profits. That was the headline in the Business Daily. But then if you look at the breakdown, banks' net profit half year 2020 versus 2021 in billions of shillings. It is listed. In 2020, Equity had 9 billion shillings net profit.
Okay.
Same period of time. This year, 17.9 billion.
From 9 to 17.
Yes.
Okay.
KCB from 7.5 billion to 15.3 billion. Double. You know, we're talking about almost doubling this.
Yeah.
Coop Bank from 7.2 to 7.37. They were more or less where they were. Give or take a few 100,000. Absa 0.59. This is a serious leap to 5.57 billion.
Wow.
NCBA 2.6 to 4.6 billion. I&M 3 billion to 4.2 billion. Stanbic 2 to 3.3. Diamond Trust 2 to 3.5. Now, if you look at this and you look at the portfolio of bad loans, all right, they also dropped. That probably explains the profit margins. KCB, bad debts, 2020, 11 billion, 2021, 6 billion.
Wow.
NCBA, 7.6 billion, 2021, 5 billion. Coop Bank, 1 billion, 2021, 4 billion.
Come on.
Theirs has gone up.
The bad loans in Coop Bank.
Equity, 8 billion, 2020, 2021, 2 billion. Diamond Trust, 1 billion, 2021, 2 billion. Absa, 5 billion in 2020, 1.9 billion in 2021. Stanbic, 1.6 billion, now it's 1.1. I&M, 1. What is the same? Standchart had bad debts 1.6, now it's 0.6. Now, why am I choosing to point at these things? I'm pointing this because when you are told that the economy is rebounding, the economy is getting better, and you look at the financial sector, Fuliza joins that particular sector because they deal with money and the borrowing of money. And what you're offered is an overdraft. What you're seeing is that profits are being made. Now, the question I want to ask myself is this. Myself, not anybody else, just myself for the time being. Is, so, are these profits that are being made in a situation where perhaps we ought to be seeing less profits? And if we're seeing more profits, what are we seeing? There's an explanation given. The economy is rebounding. Is it really? If we can't manage health services, if health service has gone back to the basic old days when there was no insurance, no NHF, nothing, where it's now community driven. People are selling houses and cars. You are telling us the economy is rebounding. People may be doing well. All you require is a case of COVID where somebody passes away and suddenly you are on the breadline.
Yep.
Yes. And COVID hasn't gone away and it isn't reducing in numbers anyway.
So what does that mean? Is that are these institutions lending to small businesses and individuals, or are they lending to the government?
It's government. Our internal borrowing is profound. And government borrowing is safe for banks. Because you know that the government will pay you. and you know what you're going to get, and with minimum risk. At such times, the question you want to ask is, the profits I understand, their shareholders, everything about the business I understand. But should we not see and hear more of some social leaning processes, policies at a time? Because these profits aren't being made just from thin air. This government is paying these banks with money that we give the government. Okay? Ostensibly, the government is also borrowing on our behalf. But the priority of what is needed at this particular point in time, in my mind, doesn't seem to be the focus. Because this reads to me like business as usual. Now, if you want to understand it better, that's what I'm saying. I'm tying it to today's papers. Motorists to pay 100 shillings hourly for Nairobi parking.
Yep.
Yes, so that when you thought it was safe to get out of the water.
Per hour.
But in other areas, CBD 90 shillings, all other streets in CBD 75, CBD off street 100, other hubs 50, all other areas 40. Meaning, you're going to be paying for parking literally everywhere in the city. Literally everywhere in the city.
Even in estates.
Yes, even. And the least you're likely to pay per hour is 40 shillings.
You know, we have a serious attitude problem with our government. Huh?
Yes, with the leadership. Serious.
Our government treats us like we're just this nuisance. It's doing us a favor, and you're just a nuisance. If you just look at the thinking behind this by NMS and the Nairobi City County government, motorists to be charged between 75 and 90 per hour for street parking in the city centre, right? It's the thinking here is, you know, CBD is congested. To decongest the CBD, increase the amount that you're charging so that you discourage people from parking in the CBD. Have you asked yourself, why are they parking in the CBD?
Yes.
I mean, somebody doesn't come and leave their car in the CBD and then they go to Upper Hill.
Obviously, it's because they have business.
It's a CBD holiday destination.
You know?
You say, today, where shall we go?
Yeah, let's go park in the CBD,
yes.
and then we walk around, you know. This is Kenyatta Avenue.
Yes.
Okay, wow. This one, buddy has put some new paper. This is Nyayo House. No. Is there an alternative that is being provided? This talk of creating alternative parking spots, even parking silos, say, outside the CBD, has been there forever. And instead of the city fathers and mothers thinking about how to actualize this, they're thinking, just put up the fee. Let's go and start charging people at home.
Yes.
Ati, you are not going to the CBD?
We'll find you at
home. You leave your car at home. Pay for it.
It's like a polio vaccination. They'll find you at home.
Find you at home. You don't take your car to the CBD, right?
No, we come for your car.
Leave it at home. Pay for it.
So,
what sense? Nonsense is actually what it is.
It's all in the name of enhancing revenue collection. Okay? And yet alternatives to this particular issue
exist.
Oh, they most certainly do. They are talks and plans. Do you really think that everybody who has a car would want to drive their car into the CBD if there were the safe alternative?
I'm telling you, if there was an alternative and people did not have to drive, they would take it. It's been tried, it's been tested, it's been proven. You don't need to go into the mishmash that is traffic.
You think people enjoy these long traffic jams that we
people don't. You think people? It's not a sporting activity that people want. Today, actually, you know, just like you're saying, let's go tour the city. All right, let's sit in traffic for 4 hours. Nobody wants to do that. You give me an alternative where I can actually take a train or a tram in and out. I do my business. I don't have to park. I'm done. I leave. People would want that option. People want that option.
The other day when we spoke with Housing and Urban Development PS, Charles Hinga, he was telling us about the BRT project going on Thika Road.
He did.
Right? And the plan is, when this thing is working, we're going to establish a giant parking lot at Kasarani. Okay? So where you come, you leave your vehicle at Kasarani, and then you board the BRT, which brings you to town and other parts. And then you can go in the evening and now you pick your car from Kasarani. Because you have large tracts of land in Kasarani, you will pick your car, go home. Why can't we have that now?
What stops it from happening right now?
You know, the sports center itself has a massive parking space.
Yes.
Just for purposes of piloting. Are you telling me that it has not been possible all these years to pilot this thing that we're talking about, so that traffic gets to Kasarani and it stops there, and then you can come into town? I mean, right around this great city, you can have such a plan. Are we being told that this is something that cannot be done? Of course it can be done.
Of course it can be done. Oh, the geniuses have actually even tried it. You see, they came up with a train station at Syokimau.
Yes.
Right? The one just coming to town with nice parking.
Huge
parking. Problem, the train only operates in the morning once and in the evening.
How useful is that? How useful?
If you go to that parking lot today, right, at about 11, you'll find it's full, right?
Mm-hmm.
At about 11, you'll find that parking lot full. Because people came and parked and they used the train to go to town. And they'll come and pick their
the
vehicle
evening at 6 o'clock.
and go home. Now imagine if that thing was working round the clock.
And that you were
how
on this
many
side
more
of the
vehicles
city,
you'd remove from Mombasa Road every day?
Actually, every entry point into the city.
Yes.
What's wrong with having an hourly commute? One leaves, another one is coming in this direction. So what's wrong with having that?
You know, this discussion about the matatu operators not being willing to partake of it, it's not true. These matatu circles, Masaku tattoos, matatu circles, you too, they are an organized lot. If it can be demonstrated that instead of every rickety matatu on the road, you can instead put up, as the group that you are, vehicles that can carry more people and do the same business, do you see them saying, no, we can't do this? I don't see them, because they're an organized lot.
It doesn't even require intricate thinking. It doesn't even require intricate implementation. It's something that actually be done. And so that's what I keep saying. It's just unwillingness to prioritize it as an option.
No, it requires a brain, and that's a problem. You know, that thing, it's a problem. Hard small.
Eric, remember, you see, before matatus, we had a public bus service called Kenya Bus. Okay? You know, it worked. In all honesty, you even knew. At this hour, you knew you could rely on it.
You want bus number 46 this time.
And you know
bus
where
number
it goes
23
to.
this
At what time. Why? It's indicated. Public transportation. If you ask me, who wouldn't want to use that transport when you know very well where the bus stop nearest to where you live is and the time that bus arrives? Who will not want to?
You're a nuisance. Pay 100 shillings per hour. Or get out of the CBD parking.
I can go and vegetate at home.
Yes.
Okay.
Just let a push up. Not fanyisha kazi mingi. Dennis is questioning that story about the banks. He's wondering, how does non-performing loans drop from 8 billion shillings to 2 billion shillings
in a year?
Was it just one portfolio that has now normalized?
No.
Are we talking about many? 8 billion to 2 billion shillings. The people who are not performing, who are not being able to pay their loans last year.
You know, it's a valid question he asks, because if you look at the article, one of the things that is not stated, when you talk about bad loans, over what period of time? Okay?
It's at the point of reporting.
Yes, at the point of reporting. And it's often cumulative.
Although remember, banks had been told to freeze. Remember there was that whole, last year around this time, there was a conversation with the central bank and they had agreed what we're going to do is freeze. So all those things now fall into
bad debts.
Non-performing.
Yes.
Probably that's one of the reasons.
Oh, no, it is one of the reasons. It certainly is one of the reasons.
Let's take a quick break. 10 minutes to 7. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
You must have an interest.
Spice up your...
The ministry has set out new rules for the registering of new schools. So you can't just come out and do the way you were doing before. Having adequate classrooms, compliance with the CBC, are among the new requirements schools must fulfill to be registered.
As in, those were not requirements before. You did not need to have adequate classrooms before to register.
You could just come and City would say, Willie, Nilly.
Do you know why this becomes interesting?
There's
a registered college somewhere
in
Kisii
that does not have a single classroom.
Buildings.
Building exists. They even have equipment, classroom, lecture hall. It's only recently that they apportioned 10 students to go to the. It's registered.
Kusip said 10 now can go there.
Yes. As for teachers, I think there are 4.
So
each 2 students per teacher.
Now the ministry has said it's necessary. And the classrooms must also have what? Enough desks and chairs. The guidelines by the Ministry of Education requires the school to have enough classrooms from pre-primary all the way to senior secondary school, which is what it's going to be called now. The curriculum offered must be vetted and approved by the KICD and registered by the Ministry of Education. According to a document titled The Registration Guidelines for Basic Education Institutions by the Ministry, the new CBC compliant schools will be required to have spaces for pathways that the learners choose. So the pathways are now the subject line that you choose.
Okay.
Right? They're called pathways, yeah?
They're called pathways.
Right.
All senior secondary schools will be required to have facilities that can offer at least 2 pathways and that all the tracks that are required therein. Senior secondary schools offer STEM subjects, the sciences, and will also have the specific additional facilities to offer all the 4 STEM tracks. So if you're doing chemistry, if you're doing physics, if you're doing some of the other natural sciences or the other physical sciences, and if you're going to have lab work, you must have all the facilities required to fulfill this particular pathway. You can't come and say that we're offering it and then you don't have these facilities. Okay? But for those that will still be offering 844, 2 nursery classrooms will be mandatory for registration. These schools will also be required to have at least 1 laboratory. Private schools will pay 10,000 shillings for every category of registration. For public institutions, 2,000 will be charged for 5-year registration and a similar amount for re-registration. The institutions will be assessed and registered afresh when they change from public to private and vice versa. The guidelines also state each county will have at most 2 public teacher training colleges, beyond which registration will not be granted.
Wow.
It goes on to give some more details about what is it. But this is it.
Okay.
Can't just do things the way you were doing them before.
Now that we have CBC and we're rolling out CBC, let's just all be clear. This is what you're required to do to sign up. Okay. Some quick things, updates. These are just updates. IBC selection panel, nominated people.
4.
President sends the people's names to Parliament. Parliament approved. Bas. That story.
So those problems you had before, out.
Higher. Anti-corruption commissioners, 2 of them wrote to the president, the appointing authorities. They said,
we're not doing again.
Tumewachia Mungu.
Out.
So 2 commissioners of the anti-corruption authority have decided, for whatever reason, tumewachia
they were not revealed.
Mungu.
You know, it's interesting because they were on a 1-term, 6-year.
Yes, and it was about to expire in December.
Yes, so really.
On the 15th
So this resignation is what exactly?
It's just maybe just going on terminal leave.
They were not getting another term. Sister, it was 1 term.
You leave while the party is still hot and thumping now.
Why not just wait until the 15th of December?
You want to wait until the party is over?
Yeah, there's a story here.
Yeah, there is a story.
There's a story I want to give.
Wait a moment. I thought that...
Not that story. There's another one.
That
the
story,
commissioners.
There's a story.
The commissioners, I have no story of them.
All right, but carry on with this story that you then have.
Nairobi, back to Nairobi. The Nairobi Metropolitan Service is going to be conducting an auction very soon. You want to buy a motorbike? 193 motorbikes will be auctioned.
Why?
Because the people whose motorbikes were impounded by Kanjo have not come to collect them.
Okay.
They have been lying in the Dagoretti and Ngong Road police yards for more than 2 years after the owners failed to show up with legal documents, including logbooks and receipts to claim them. According to the NMS head of enforcement, William Kangogo, when we impound the motorbikes, we require logbooks and receipts given by the companies and distributors because we suspect some of these motorbikes were stolen or acquired illegally. Kangogo spoke amid an ongoing crackdown on boda operators within the city centre. The operation, which has been going on for 3 weeks, is targeting areas where the riders are not allowed to operate. For the last 3 weeks, we've been arresting boda riders within the CBD where they are not allowed to operate because most of them have been linked to criminal activities like the ones who snatched phones from police officers. Where Kangogo, this never happened, according to the police. On the auctioning process, the first step is to come up with a list, and then they'll hand that over to the Director of Procurement and then seek a court order to complete the legal process. Now, the issue here is there's an ongoing crackdown on bodas.
Ongoing?
Ongoing.
I thought it was always ongoing.
Yes. Now there's an ongoing, brand new, fresh crackdown.
Okay, it's a new ongoing.
Yes. 193 bodas that have been impounded over the last 2 years. Unataka pikipiki yako? Yeah. Wapi receipt? Wapi logbook? Wapi logbook na receipt? Hauna? Wewe kwenda.
Sio yako.
And if you use the logbook and the receipt, rest assured there'll be another problem.
Yes, of course.
So, basically we are saying 193 people have been out of business. Right? Rendered jobless by the NMS over the last 2 years.
Yes.
And their bikes will be sold.
Yes.
To third parties.
Yes.
Unless they can raise money to come and auction and buy the same bike.
Yes, but also, you know, since we have this is an update on things that are being done, customs, JKIA, they also are complaining that their stores are full with impounded goods.
Impounded. People are not coming to claim.
They're not coming to claim these things which they've impounded. Apparently, people come into the country, they're not really sure whether these things should be declared, and they're told they should declare them because of the cost and where they come from. They are kept until you can pay whatever duty is required.
Have you ever been made to open your bags by those people?
Yes, I have.
Wapi receipt here? It's a cap. Yeah, wapi receipt? Leave it here. Hizi nguo ulinunua wapi?
Yes,
zinakaa mpya.
That list
wapi receipt?
That list made me the thing that caught my attention.
Let's talk about it after the news.
Please, let's.
Okay. Kenya's biggest conversation. A very good morning to you. It's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
About 4.5 million COVID-19 vaccines are expected to be introduced in the country by mid-September, with the government aiming to vaccinate 10 million people by the end of December. Meanwhile, Kenya recorded 1,018 positive cases of COVID-19 from a sample size of 9,347 tested in the last 24 hours. The positivity rate is now 10.9%, with total confirmed infections at 236,881. From the cases, 995 are Kenyans, while 23 are foreigners, 522 are females, while 496 are males. The Senate is expected to convene a special session today to discuss security issues surrounding Deputy President William Ruto. Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei has already submitted the petition to Senate after receiving more than the 15 signatures required by law to hold a special session.
Have been supported by more than 15 senators. To be specific, I have submitted the signatures and asked both the majority and minority leaders of the Senate to write to the Speaker to convene a special sitting on Thursday, 2nd September 2021 at 2:30 p.m. to deliberate on this matter, which is urgent, of national interest and national importance.
This, as Interior CS Fred Matiang'i yesterday told the National Assembly Administration and Security Committee that the DP is well secured.
The protection of the Deputy President in terms of its infrastructure is a multi-layered endeavor. The layer that is critical to us is the inner layer, which is essentially core security ecosystem for His Excellency the Deputy President. And this is occupied by the Presidential Escort Unit. Currently, His Excellency the Deputy President has got 74 officers, that layer, who provide 24/7 protection of His Excellency the Deputy President.
6 police officers linked to the murder of 2 brothers in Kianjokoma, Embu County are expected to appear in court today to answer to charges against them. Yesterday, the High Court rejected a petition filed by the 6 police officers demanding that the bodies of the brothers be exhumed and re-examined. Judge Weldon Korir also rejected a court order barring the Director of Public Prosecutions from prosecuting the 6. The officers were arrested after Benson Jiru and Emmanuel Mutura were allegedly killed after being arrested by police for allegedly violating a curfew order. Meanwhile, Rai Family Hospital's license has been reinstated. Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, Daniel Yumbia, however, said the hospital has been banned as a center for the COVID-19 vaccination.
So having made those findings, the committee issued the following orders. 1, that Ruai Family Hospital be and is hereby suspended as COVID-19 vaccination center.
This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you,
Okay, some traffic on Jogoro this morning heading out into the city. We're also looking at major traffic on Thika Road today around the survey area, joining with Muthui Square and out towards the Pangani underpass. Quite a lot of traffic in the city centre and it's already built up. Mombasa Road as well, an issue. Coming off Langata Road, it looks like the normal morning musings that we're seeing with traffic, nothing too crazy at the moment. The bypass is looking pretty good. Let's keep an eye on things. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
6 minutes after 7. Very good morning to you. How are you doing on this second day of September 2021? Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. And CT has a lot of proverbs today.
1.
Okay.
Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand. This is from Guinea, not Papua New Guinea. Guinea.
In West Africa.
Guinea-Bissau.
No, not Guinea-Bissau.
Guinea-Bissau is a different place.
Okay.
Guinea.
Pig. Guinea.
Conakry. That Guinea.
There's a book that was written by a gentleman called Semben Usman. God's Bits of Wood. It's something that anyone who wants to enjoy a detailed narrative, fictional narrative of that part of the world and how it was just one lovely homogeneous unit before all manner of things changed with colonization. It's a good book to read. Semben Usman, God's Bits of Wood.
God's Bits of Wood.
Yep.
Okay. So you were telling us about the auction that's to be conducted
it was just
by
a mention.
Kenya Airports
Yes,
Authority.
since you're talking about all these things being impounded, I thought I should also mention customs
Yeah.
also have impounded. And whatever storage capacity they have is now bursting at the seams. But 3 items caught my attention among the things that have been impounded. Drones. You know, these small little planes that people have which can even take pictures, blah, 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 blah. Those ones, drones. People they even use for supplying medication now, drones.
Yeah, shopping.
Then there's this equipment for this smoking thing called
Shisha. Please say it.
Sha.
Very good.
I don't know how to say slowly.
Let you bite your tongue.
Yes. And then on the list, this one actually made me raise my eyebrows. Sex toys.
Sorry, just come back to what you were saying again.
I started off with
They've
drones.
been impounded.
Yes, among the many things that have been impounded there.
By
Items of
customs
clothing,
officials.
Customs officials.
At JKIA.
JKIA.
Okay.
And the store is full, not becoming full.
Okay.
3 things caught my attention. Drones, shisha, sex toys.
That they're coming in plenty.
Well, clearly...
Normally, why would customs impound them?
Because they're supposed to be declared. And when you declare, it means this is what I have, you pay duty. So if it's impounded, it means you didn't pay duty.
Right.
Okay.
Mostly it's duty not paid. Or people have decided
declare.
you've kept it, stay with it.
Or it's not recognized under, as a product in Kenyan law.
Well, look at it, this is not exempt from taxes because what people claim it, these are my personal things.
Sure.
Okay? There are 2 items here. There's only 1 item here I can see as personal. Drone can also be personal. Shisha can also be personal. Sex toys can also be personal. But you see, you then have to convince the customs officer
that it's yours.
Well, or pay taxes for it. You brought it in. There's some money that is...
There's an issue here, City.
Please?
Is there a tax levied on sex toys?
I'm sure there is.
You'd have to start by recognizing them.
Yes.
Are they recognized in law?
As sex toys?
Kenyan law.
Maybe it's under entertainment.
They should be exempt.
I don't know. I'm simply saying...
There are things related to health.
Are they now?
Yes, they are. Sexual health. Eric does have a point.
Yeah.
They are related to health. All I'm saying is these 3 items caught my attention and they're not dragging me into that discussion.
Well, there is no Kenyan law at the moment that bans or prohibits the sale or distribution of things like sex toys in the country at the moment.
Okay, so what's the tax on them? That's what Eric was asking.
Right.
Is there one that recognizes them?
And what are they recognized under?
Well, okay. So, nope. There isn't.
So when the customs official now is faced with something like that, now they wonder,
the question is, what are we declaring?
Yeah, so what is this?
Actually, the first thing I think they ask is, what is this?
You'd be surprised they would actually know. But they're just going to try and make a fuss
yes,
about
what
it.
is this?
Yeah.
What is it used for? And at that point, you say, he...
Sirudi na silipi.
Unataka nini? Unataka nikuachie? Kana hayo basi. So they have been matured many that they have to be auctioned. So when they, if they're going to auction them, that means that they are recognized.
If they don't auction them, they will burn them, just so that you understand. So,
okay.
There are those little details.
Wako na shida.
It would appear so.
Mingi. So there was yesterday early in the morning, there was a statement by the board. What's it called? It's called the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Council.
Yes. Stop being a board, it's now a council.
It's council, okay? And it had several things that it was talking about. And let me just look for it so that I can read it here. Oh, of course, you know the way government statements start. This institution is established under the law, blah, 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 is a body corporate and established under this particular law, just so that we are clear that we are a legal entity. Second paragraph, among the functions of the council is to register and license health institutions as stipulated under section 4(1)k LK and take disciplinary action as stipulated in another section of that law that we're talking about. The law is the Medical Practitioners and Dentists Act. This is the one that licenses all health facilities in the country and also licenses the doctors. Okay? The council has forthwith revoked the operating license, and this is a letter written to Dr. Maxwell Okoth, the Chief Executive Officer of Ruai Family Hospital, dated 31st of August. Yep, that was the day before yesterday. And it says the Ministry of Health designated Ruai Family Hospital as a COVID-19 vaccination center. However, the management of Ruai Family Hospital has contravened the rules and regulations governing COVID-19 vaccines deployment. Accusation number 1. Accusation number 2. The management of Ruai Family Hospital delivered vaccines meant for use at the said facility under unclear circumstances to other unauthorized premises and carried out the vaccination exercise in an uncontrolled environment wherein the quality of vaccines could not be ascertained and thus endangering public safety. In view of the above, the continued operation of the facility brings into question the safety of the patients being managed therein. Consequently, you are hereby directed to close the facility forthwith and organize in consultation with patients and their relatives to transfer all the inpatients in other facilities of their choice within 24 hours. Further, you are required to appear before the Disciplinary and Ethics Committee of the Council on Wednesday yesterday at 10 a.m. at the KMPDC complex, accompanied by all the personnel who have been involved in the handling of COVID vaccines. Okay. It was signed by the CEO of the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, Daniel Yumbia. Later in the evening, the council, like we've heard in the news, revoked this particular They gave the hospital back its license, but they said you are not now going to operate as a vaccination center. Okay? And this is what the issues were. They say that the alleged business manager, Caroline Kenyanjui, is not a healthcare worker, nor is she authorized under the law to handle COVID vaccines. There was no documentation to prove that the nurse, Ruth Mutitika, was authorized to issue the vaccines to Caroline Kenyanjui. And the conclusion is that Ruth did not sign for the vaccines in line with the hospital's protocols. Mutitika had also no authority from the hospital management to issue vaccines, which the hospital had reported missing at the police station under OB number dated 29th of August. The action jeopardizes the quality and efficacy of vaccines, thus endangering public safety. On its part, the family hospital issued a statement on Tuesday evening arguing that its license was revoked and the facility closed before they had been heard. So what happened? First, over the weekend, there's news of some vaccination happening somewhere in Murang'a. Mm-hmm. Okay? And the people who are conducting these are not the Department of Health in Murang'a County. Remember, health devolved, vaccination being done by county. But it's somebody who has organized a vaccination camp.
Yeah.
Hue and cry from health people in Murang'a, hue and cry from the Ministry of Health. How do we have just an ad hoc vaccination campaign happening? And then it also happens that the management of Ruai Family Hospital has gone to police station to report that some vaccines that were here are missing. So tie 2 and 2 together. How did these vaccines leave this hospital? How did they end up in that place? So the hospital, the council has found that the people who are handling these vaccines should not have been handling the vaccines in the first place. And the whole issue of it being shut down has now been reversed. What caught my attention, though, was the order. First of all, you cease operating immediately as a hospital. And number 2, all the inpatients need to get out of that facility within 24 hours. Now imagine you have a patient at Ruai Family Hospital. Many of them are COVID patients. Others are recuperating from cancer and other ailments, and they've been admitted. And then you see that, and you are required to get a new facility for your kin within a day, because this facility is no longer allowed to exist as a hospital. What goes through your mind?
Let's put it this way. This isn't one of those situations where you can say you jumpstart your thinking. No. This is perhaps one of the most appropriate descriptions of a crisis that I've had in a long time. Because today you have business, it's called hospital. Tomorrow you have nothing. From hospital to nothing. what do you think went through the minds of the people who owned this hospital? What do you think went through the minds of people who knew what was happening or who thought they knew? What do you think happened? What happened to the point where the council said, okay, fine, we are willing to let you off with a little slap on the wrist, but you're not going to be a center for distributing this. You want my opinion on this matter? I think the pronouncements were excellent. It shook the tree.
The council's pronouncement?
Yes, it shook the tree. It means, my friend, you are given the responsibility, a very serious responsibility of ensuring that people's lives are looked after. And as part of that responsibility, we've allowed you, a private hospital, like others that we've allowed, to be a center for vaccinations. And then this happens. No, we're getting to the bottom of it. Had they said investigations are being done and business is being conducted as usual, it would have been, we're not sure, it went here, but we're shutting down. Believe me, the perpetrators will be found, they'll be brought forward, and you'll know exactly what happened, how it got here. Because if you're the people whose business it is, do you really think you are going to let your hospital be shut down because of someone else's mistake? And you know very well it's someone else's mistake, not yours. Somebody who...
And you can trace and find out whose mistake it is.
Yes, because it's delegated responsibility. So you know exactly, it stopped here, it went here, and it went... You know. These things can be traced. You know, if vaccines could be bought over the counter, you know, this we wouldn't have a story here.
No, of course, because everybody would be able to walk in.
And if the country was awash with vaccines, again, we wouldn't have a story. But right now, vaccines are a life or death commodity.
So I think that's why we're looking at two sides of the story, is that something then definitely did go wrong. Vaccines which were meant to be for free somehow found their way into the hands of somebody who was then using them clearly in a political setting, right? But on the other hand, I mean, however, that process and the way in which it happened, because that's the truth of the matter, that this happened. Vaccines left the facility, they were used in another way other than what they were initially prescribed for, right? But the decision that was taken to shut this facility would have untold circumstances, consequences on a very large number of people.
Yes, it would.
Not just those individuals that were admitted in hospital for care, their families. What are you supposed to do? Because a lot of people, like Eric was saying, are on treatment for terminal illness. Those who come to the hospital on a daily basis to be able to get their dialysis or this or that or their chemotherapy, this, that or the other thing. Those who are admitted in hospital are on support. What happens to them when you make a decision like that? Because the order was not that we are revoking your license and you shut down for only 24 hours. It was until further notice. So what was supposed to happen to those people in that period of time? When you make a decision, are we looking at the consequences that as a result, especially when we're talking about the health care of people that are under their facility?
Vulnerable people at that point. So Roy Family Health Hospital is a private hospital, and it's a member of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. So this association released a statement yesterday as well, and they were talking about all those issues that we are raising. They say, in our view, there is no nexus between the possible risk that the public was exposed to in an outreach exercise courtesy of an individual healthcare provider's unilateral actions, and the safety of patients being managed within the facility. They're also raising that issue. They are saying, indeed, the abrupt decision to close the facility due to perceived risk to public safety is counterproductive in as far as it puts the lives of patients currently being managed at the facility in jeopardy at a time when the country's healthcare capacity and resources are stretched. The statement was signed by Dr. Timothy Olwenyi, who's the Secretary General of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals, and he joins us now via video link. Good morning, Dr. Olwenyi.
Yes, morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's good to have you on the show, and thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Yes, you're welcome.
Now, a lot of things, just like we've said, a lot of things have happened. The council conducts investigations. Council finds out that there is something that has gone wrong in a health facility. Council is a regulator. Council decides to take this action. You took issue with the drastic action of closing the hospital, but you did not take issue with everything else, did you?
No, I didn't. It was very clear that there was a breach that had occurred in terms of public safety with regard to the vaccination. However, what we didn't feel was that there was a direct link between that and the safety of the entire population of patients within that hospital at that time, and all the other people who had chosen to procure the services of Ruai Family Hospital.
Daktari, thank you very much for coming to the show this morning. This isn't the first time we've heard of a health facility being shut down in the country. It's just that usually it's some clinic or some small outfit that no one has ever heard of. And usually those who have the authority to license them and also shut them down give reasons as to why they're doing it. Would you say that this perhaps was more of a warning shot saying we will not take issues such as this one lightly, and that the likelihood of the entire facility being shut down because of even a minor infraction is something that can be a possibility? Do you think this was what we saw happening?
I think if it was a warning shot, then I think it went a little too far, because it became counterproductive in as far as I want you to get the perspective that you've got some patients who are in this hospital, who, for example, are on life support. We must also be very clear that the decision to be able to procure services from a particular facility is a very intricate and personal decision. It has got issues to do with possible close proximity. It's that you've got a healthcare provider you trust. It's a place that you can afford. It's the only place that has got the kind of service that you're seeking at that particular point. So, for example, to say that the entire population has to be moved out of that hospital within 24 hours is too radical. As far as I'm concerned, this can only be justified where there's egregious violation and widespread violation of public safety. But in this particular instance, you had an outreach exercise specific to vaccination outside the facility. Then you also have information, whether they had it or not, I'm not too sure, but you have information that this was a personal act by a particular employee. So I didn't see that the nexus between that. What I feel is that, first of all, maybe the vaccination exercise, what they should have terminated, and then said, come and let us talk, let's hear your perspective. And the board is within its mandate to be able to regulate the operation of private health institutions and healthcare providers in general. But I think the manner in which it was done was rushed, and it was counterproductive.
Right. So, what could there have been any lead, any kind of link then to maybe other things then? Because even speaking with the CEO yesterday, could there be another link that maybe something else was going on, which they wanted to use this as an opportunity to find out? Or to do the investigations or anything else? Because, as you say, if it was just that vaccination drive was being carried out outside of the hospital, could there be that there was something else that was being looked for, which this would then shed light on?
I'd say a cursory look at the circumstances would say that there's more that meets the eye, but in my position, I would not be one to speculate as to what was going on.
Sure.
You know, the healthcare provision in this country, I think, and those who provide it must be commended for the sterling work they've been doing, especially with this pandemic that we have. But most of the private sector and how it is that they've showed up the support that the government clearly has not been able to provide. However, as a union, I'm calling it a union of private hospitals, what structure do you have in place to ensure good health practices are maintained in all the facilities that are your members?
I think, first of all, it's that for you to be a member, I don't want people to assume that any private, as in non-government or non-faith-based institution, is a member of our organization. Ours is a very clearly selected group of people who, first of all, have been vetted and met the minimum regulatory thresholds to be able to operate as a private institution. And that's why I tell you that it is unusual for you to get egregious violations of policy or health guidelines within our institutions, because the same people that are supposed to regulate us are the ones who license us. So only licensed institutions where you've got institutions where you've got employees who are properly licensed, facilities that are properly licensed are our members. So it is very unusual for you to get gross violations within our institutions. That is number one.
Yes.
That notwithstanding,
yes,
there are certain things that will go wrong from time to time, because institutions are made up of groups of individuals, and the groups of individuals are selected from the general population. So even if you use the normal distribution, you will find some people who will do some unusual things.
Yes, indeed. What you say is very true. But indulge us a little bit. Tell us, what are these things that you look for in your members? Okay, you've mentioned all the personnel are registered. They meet certain basic standards. What else in terms of facilities, in terms of the quality assurances? Please run us through the things that you look at before somebody becomes a member of your association.
First of all, you have to duly registered health workers. Okay. And the health workers are registered by different bodies that are professional bodies that regulate them and statutory bodies. Mm-hmm. For the doctors and dentists, it's going to be a medical practitioner and a dentist council. For nurses, it's going to be the nursing council. For clinical officers, it's going to be the clinical officers council. And for the lab people, it's the Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologists Board. For the radiologists, it's going to be the Radiology Protection Board. For pharmacists, it's Pharmacy and Poisons Board. So first of all, you've got people who are properly trained and duly licensed by those institutions. Then you have got the issues to do with the premises, which of course are usually licensed, and prior to licensing, you've got inspection that is also carried out by the same medical board. So once those minimum criteria are met, then again it is optional, because again people elect to join our membership of organization by virtue of being or wanting to benefit from certain services that we provide or technical expertise and so on.
Do you rely on the government services to ensure compliance with these regulations, or do you, as an organization, have your own unit that ensures that your members meet the standards that you've set?
We don't have the capacity at the moment to be able to have our own regulatory unit. What we do is we advise, we liaise with the relevant bodies so that we set various standards in terms of quality. So those are services that we provide as add-ons. But if you're asking directly whether we have a unit that goes around vetting the institutions and ensuring compliance, that we don't. But we generally meet together and provide advice and provide technical expertise to that effect.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We're looking at this particular center, this particular facility then had this issue. But what we have seen now is that they are then forthwith prohibited from being a vaccination center moving forward, because of these happenings. It's obviously the area in which it is that a lot of people depend on it. So now, do you think that looking at the situation that we are currently in with vaccinations being necessary around the country, should it be opened up to more private facilities in the country to then provide this service to Kenyans?
In my opinion, there's not been significant engagement of the private sector in terms of vaccination exercise, and I think I've voiced this concern before. We must remember that the private health sector provides upwards of 40% of the healthcare needs of the population within this country at the moment. So you cannot have an effective vaccination exercise without actively involving the private sector. That having been said, vaccination, especially COVID vaccination, is a very serious matter. So the action that was taken by the board is justified. And in fact, that is the action I would have taken if I was sitting at the board at that time. So the action is justified because you can't have vaccination being carried out and you're not clear that it's going to be effective. That is justified. So until they go and do an audit and confirm that, again, all the safeguards are in place for safe vaccination to continue, I would put that on hold.
Okay. I understand when you issued the statement and you're raising concern about that drastic action that was taken by the council to say shut down the entire facility and let all patients be transferred from the facility. That I can understand. However, at the same time, like you said, it's raising issues of a likelihood of endangering public safety. Now, if one issue is clearly coming out of this particular facility, is it not likely that there could be many other issues that need to be looked at? If an issue of vaccines have been given to you, everybody understands what this exercise is all about. Everybody understands you've been given vaccines, but through your own systems, vaccines have left your facility and they've found themselves outside even of the county that you're in, and they've gone to another place. Does that not raise concerns about then what are the safety measures that have been taken, the safeguards that have been taken by this particular facility to ensure that even the medicine that is supposed to be used by patients or the medicine that's supposed to be injected or administered to patients is actually the actual medicine, and that the staff are not substituting this and giving our patients something else?
It is possible, but not likely. And the reason I say this is that you see, you also have to look at the track record of the history of the organization. You see, you must remember that a lot of these organizations see hundreds of people and provide care to them every single day. In the absence of you getting any regular complaints or even occasional complaints from a facility, it is unlikely. So I'll treat this as an isolated event. That would be my perspective. And I also want to emphasize the aspect here that we have to go to our procedural fairness. And let me give you, to illustrate my point, let me just ask you a question. You have seen gross violations of medical policy or various things happening in public institutions. If, for example, it happened in the county hospital, would it have been shut down overnight?
Very unlikely.
Extremely unlikely. And that is what we have said even in the past when other hospitals have been shut down because of certain breaches that have occurred. Let us not make private institutions a soft target in terms of being able to make a point. I think we also just want fairness, and I've said as an organization, we are not going to compromise public safety. That's one of the key things that we're here to take care of as healthcare providers and healthcare workers. But again, there has to be fairness. We must remember private institutions are also employers. So it's a wider perspective. We also employ people who depend on this institution. When you shut it down overnight, you're also jeopardizing the livelihoods of those who depend on that hospital. There are a lot of patients who come there for care and elect to do so for particular reasons. You're denying them that right. So I know you might not think institutions themselves have got rights, but within institutions, you've got individuals who also have rights that should not be violated, especially when it is not justified.
Dr. Olwenyi, there are very many other things that are happening with private hospitals, and we'd like to keep you on the line so we can discuss them. Now, broadening out of Ruai Family Hospital and this particular case of COVID vaccination centers, there's, for example, a move in Parliament to see whether you can put a cap on how much you should be charging as doctors and as institutions. And there's also very many complaints that are coming out with regards to private hospitals asking for deposit in emergency cases. We'd like to engage on this for a bit, if you don't mind. So just stay on the line at 26 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a break, take a look at the weather and then traffic. We have with us on the line Dr. Timothy Olwenyi. He's the Secretary General of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. The conversations continue. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*2# to read the Nairobian e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line and stay up to date. The hottest talk of town with no additional charges.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog.
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi hii umbo yako iko na
hii ni umba special.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 16, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Nakuru is mostly sunny at 14, highs of 24, lows of 14 today. 14 will also be the low in Nyeri, where it's raining at 4 and going to highs of 22. Looking out west in Kisumu, 21 degrees and cloudy conditions, highs of 29 and lows of 18. In Kakamega this morning, we'll see 20 degrees, cloudy conditions, highs of 28 and lows of 15. Mombasa this morning is raining at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 23. We're looking at light rain as well in Malindi at 25. It'll go to highs of 29 today. All right, let's look out into Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 21, highs of 26 and lows of 18. And in Dar es Salaam, mostly sunny conditions at 24, highs of 30 and lows of 22. Lagos is cloudy at 24, highs of 28. And in Kinshasa, it's mostly cloudy at 23, highs of 30 and lows of 23. Okay, still continues on the Thika Superhighway today, getting into the city. Quite heavy there, and we're looking at that traffic getting in around the Pangani underpass. That's where you're going to find that clog up. We're also looking at Jogo Road, where it's quite tight as well. Mombasa Road continues to be a thing all the way from the Weybridge to the SGR and beyond, moving very slowly this morning. And looks like it will be some time before we get out of this one. Okay, we're also looking at traffic on Langata Road today, heading out into the city at the roundabout Nyayo Stadium, going through to the city as well. It's quite heavy. Let's keep an eye on things. Help us out here. Don't forget the bypasses. You can use them without too much of a headache this morning. Text us on 40127. Tweet us on SpiceFM KE.
Spice and everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4
And your
Spice
biggest
FM,
conversation continues
Nairobi.
at 20 minutes to 8. In the Situation Room this morning is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and C.T. Muga. Joining us on the line is Dr. Timothy Oluenyi. He's the Secretary General of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. As we were going to the break, Doc, we were talking about the issue of KMPDC yesterday with the Ruai Family Hospital. But beyond that, there's ongoing concerns and complaints by members of the public with regards to hospitals in general, but particularly in private hospitals. Somebody is seeking hospitalization for their loved one because they urgently require a bed or an ICU facility because of COVID. Let's not even talk about all the other cases. COVID. They get to a hospital at midnight or 2 a.m. and this facility says, all right, we cannot admit this patient unless you place a deposit. And the deposit is in hundreds of thousands. We had a callers yesterday. One caller went to a hospital in Mombasa and they were asked for, was it 800,000?
800. He even named the hospital specifically.
And about 2 a.m. Another one went to another hospital and they were told, all right, so the best I can do is I can put your patient on oxygen, supplemental oxygen, but I cannot admit them until you place 300,000 shillings deposit. And this is at 7 p.m. We see this very many times across the country, people complaining about this issue of hundreds of thousands of shillings of deposit before admission. Why is this so?
I think the situation we find ourselves in is pretty unusual. And I'll say unusual in this sense. Ordinarily, healthcare is supposed to be paid for under, in fact, some of the things about the push towards UHC is they want healthcare to be paid for, not at the point of service, but there has to be at the point of admission. Healthcare providers and institutions would prefer that we're discussing about the medical care of the patient as opposed to talking about money. However, the reality is, and we must remember, the responsibility for provision of health services rests upon the government and secondly upon the individuals, unfortunately. That's the true situation. Now, the government is supposed to, for all services, by the way, that are regarded as essential, the approach by government is that if you don't want a point where your population is put in jeopardy because of financial reasons, and especially because of private sector players, you provide the service. That is what the government has failed to do, and that's why even private healthcare players exist. So the challenge that we have is that responsibility is from the government. So in the setting of COVID, for example, it would have been one of those things that I would really like that when we're raising funds for COVID response, we should be raising funds for provision of healthcare to the population. In our circumstances, we've provided funds for cushioning the economy, for doing all manner of other things, but fails to address the basic problem, which is a healthcare issue. So the challenge that we have is that healthcare institutions in a situation also where insurance companies, because the force majeure clause within our contracts, are not paying for COVID. NHIF is not paying for COVID. The government is not providing services for COVID. Let us be honest. If you had a healthcare institution that is going to provide services that cannot be paid for, the healthcare institution is going to shut down overnight. And you must remember, these are also private institutions which have got personal funds for investors, which also need to be secured. And that's why you have got this unfortunate situation we're in at right now. So I think there's a wider problem as opposed to just saying that private hospitals are all about money. Money is not everything, but money is also extremely important, we have to admit. And that's the challenge we find ourselves in. Because you cannot have a private investor coming and investing their money and then closing shop 2-3 days later. It means all the other patients who potentially could have benefited from this institution also denied that service. So there's a wider issue there which needs to be addressed. And I know it is unfortunate, and my heart bleeds whenever I hear people are being sent away from hospitals because of financial reasons. But I think the responsibility rests on the government and the population. They should be lobbying with the government to say, let us pay for healthcare. Even NHIF is not paying for healthcare. That is the social health insurer. If we cannot take care of population in this time, then I don't know what we're doing.
Dr. I don't think the complaint is so much about paying, it's the amounts.
And the timing.
Because if someone told you that they want you to explain and said what you need is A, B, C, D, and so that we can carry it out, what we require is, say, 50,000 shillings or 100,000 shillings. What I'm in essence asking, Dr. What is this thing that takes you to hospital at midnight that requires 800,000 shillings? What is it that takes you to hospital at the time you go to hospital outside normal business hours that requires 200,000 shillings? And not all these people are supposed to be taken to an ICU. Yes, please go ahead.
I think the situation is whenever you have got decisions about how much people are supposed to be prior to coming to hospital, there are projections in terms of what the expenditure for managing this particular case will be. Unfortunately, you have to understand that the person who is on site at that moment, most of them are going to be medical personnel. So I do agree that sometimes the figures that are raised are unreasonable, but it is unfortunately an individual decision by the admitting person. You might find that the escalation of that decision to the people in finance or the CFO, if it's at night, for example, is not going to be done at that right time. So people are using guesstimates. Someone will say, based on previous experience, I say this one will need 300,000. The other person's bill was 500,000. But you must remember, and let us be honest also, there are circumstances where individuals have gone to hospital and have been admitted on the basis of saying it is at night, I'm not going to be able to pay this, and after that, patients are left in hospital and people disappear. That has also happened. Those kind of experiences, unfortunately, are what make it jeopardize the experience of those who come in later.
So then does it become a play-by-ear situation? Because if somebody, just taking into consideration what happens to a lot of people is that they're dealing in an emergency situation. I don't think anybody rocks up to hospital at that hour or at any time of the day in an emergency situation because they feel like it. So do you have a play-by-ear situation whereby, are these deposits being asked for because of the reasons that you've just given, because people might not pay later? Or are we looking at the emergency of the situation where somebody requires healthcare at that moment? Which one becomes what we're looking at now?
Let me make it clear, by the way, it is illegal to deny anybody emergency medical treatment for financial reasons. That is something that we cannot condone. I know it goes on in different institutions, but that is not something that should happen. That having been said, the moment somebody has been stabilized and we know what the situation is, then the relatives of the patient and the people who are financially responsible have got an opt to go to an institution that they can afford. Now, in COVID situations, unfortunately, that becomes tricky. You've got somebody who, for example, is on life support. They are supposed to be transferred to another facility. That other facility that they can afford possibly doesn't have beds. Maybe the regional hospital, county hospital doesn't have beds. Then now we're in a very difficult situation where expenses keep being incurred and they're not going to be able to be paid for. And that's why I'm saying these are circumstances where the government needs to have an emergency response fund to take care of circumstances like those. NHIF should also come in because they have got significant funds which should be apportioned to this. We have also raised funds in terms of COVID response. Those are the kind of money that should be disbursed. We have not seen those monies being put to that use. And that's why I keep saying you can cushion other sectors of the economy, but as long as you employ and you ignore the health sector itself, we've got a health problem that is being tackled using means other than health means.
You say you've raised this issue before. Whom have you raised it with?
We have raised it in every engagement we've had meetings with NHIF. Every time we've got an engagement with the officials within the Ministry of Health, this is a concern which we have raised. We've raised in insurance companies and said, insurance companies, as much as it is that you've got a clause which says that if it's a pandemic, then this force majeure is and applies, your policy is not in effect. But you have a moral responsibility. Do something. At the very least, tell us we're going to pay up to 20,000.
Yep.
That's what NHIF also should do. Say we're going to pay up to 100,000. Beyond that, let the other individuals take care of it. But they have to pay something. You cannot pay nothing.
How involved are private? I mean, I can hear what you're saying now, Doc, but how involved are private institutions in this whole conversation that we're having when we're talking about universal health care and we're talking about the need for a national body like NHIF to have more people on the grid in terms of what can be paid for in insurance? How involved are private hospitals and facilities involved, or practitioners involved in this conversation to try and push things to come to a head a lot quicker and a lot more complete than they are currently?
I'd say we're involved to the extent that we are also engaged. You see, you have to understand that private institutions, first of all, we're not homogeneous. We have got a whole range of institutions from very small private facilities to pretty large ones. So again, you'll find that our interests are a bit diverse in that sense. You have got some hospitals that feel they have got a significant population of people who are going to be able to pay, so they don't necessarily need to engage in this discussion, but we've engaged the Ministry of Health and the other bodies to the extent that we can. However, one thing that I do know is any push towards UHC will not be achieved without involving the private sector. Same with COVID management. So as long as you've got 40%, 50% of the organizations they seek healthcare from not being involved in this discussion, we are likely to succeed.
Have you engaged with parliamentarians on this? Like the National Assembly Committee on Health?
Yes, we have engaged the parliamentary committee. We have given our submissions, and memorandums are personally given oral submission, especially when it came to the NHIF amendment bill that is before Parliament. And I trust that even with the current bill that is seeking to control charges of hospitals, we will also give our very strong submissions on that.
Well, that ship has sailed, because the committee has already reported back to House and said, we approve and we recommend that the House passes this bill. The National Assembly Committee on Health has approved the proposed amendments to the Health Act 2017 that will see medical charges determined and capped by an 11-member council that includes the PS for Health and the Attorney General. This council is going to be called the Kenya Health Human Resource Advisory Council, that should be determining the prices for medical services and doctors' consultation fees. So when they finished this, they went back to Parliament and said, well, we now want the whole House to approve and say yes to this. So the part of public participation and engagement with associations such as yourselves has already passed.
I do agree these things have happened in the past. And that's why sometimes you see we're also reluctant necessarily, because I think it becomes this thing called public participation becomes an exercise in futility. You go there, give your oral submissions. When the final drafts come out, it's got nothing to do with your input.
So
but let me tell you in terms of a
they had
practical...
already predetermined the path they want to follow before you got there.
Of course. But you see, let me tell you, it can be a populist move. And at the moment, it's good to say, oh, private hospitals are always a bashing ground, and doctors to say we're charging patients too much. But you must remember this thing about regulation. We even have at the moment, the Medical Council has got a list of charges. And they regulate even doctors' charges already, by the way. But guess what? A lot of those charges that are put in those guidelines, believe me, are so high that most of the time we actually charge less. Because I'll tell you, they're based on the top 5 hospitals' charges in this country. So you find even in the periphery, people even laugh. If you ask somebody even half that rate, they'll be like, I can't afford it.
Right.
So let me tell you, in terms of enforcement, this is not what people should be doing. If you're talking about cost of healthcare, let's have that broader discussion and ask, why do we have the cost of healthcare being high in this country? Private hospitals, you must remember, do not determine the cost of healthcare inputs. Healthcare inputs, the cost of doctors' charges is just one thing. How about of drugs? Do we make drugs?
No, you don't.
Specific manufacturers, and they provide them to us.
To be fair, surely, when it comes to private hospitals, it's a business. And what you do determine is what the cost of your overheads are. That is something, yes. And understanding how a business functions and operates, you're not being judged on the good work you do. It's never the case. All you require is not 10 hospitals, just one hospital. No matter how small and it's in the media and something has gone wrong with it, then everybody is started with that same brush. That is exactly the reality. So the other reality is this sort of discussion that we're having here, you people must find room to have more of those discussions because so that your side is also heard. Because the side that is heard the most is when something goes wrong.
When something goes wrong, or when somebody comes out talking about inflated prices, for example, when they go to seek medical care, and that then image is put on, private hospitals, unfortunately, this particular sector.
There's need for thought leadership, Dr. Terry. Yes, go ahead.
When we say inflated, that's a term, people have got two terms that I have a serious issue with.
Yes.
Inflated and overcharging.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, that assumes that you come from a point of knowledge where, first of all, you know what the cost of that item should be, and therefore you're saying overcharged based on a guideline or some point of knowledge. Unfortunately, most of the time, healthcare, you have to admit, is a pretty complicated exercise. It's a product where most of the time, actually, even I keep maintaining that the public do not have the ability to be able to assess quality of healthcare.
And why don't we have that knowledge, Dr.
And all the time, people will assess outcomes under what I call indicators of quality. But when it comes to medical details of what is supposed to be provided and whether it's quality healthcare or not, and I'll give you an example. You can come to me with a urinary tract infection. There's a drug which I can give you which can cure you possibly that will cost 100 bob. And another one that can cost 5,000. With both of them, you're going to get cured. All right? When you talk about quality, I should actually provide quality with the least resources utilized. So I should give you the one that costs 100. Some people, I'll give them a drug that costs 100. They go to the pharmacy and they told 100 bob. They'll be like, no. This drug is not
giving them a placebo.
It's like, can I really get well with this drug?
Yes. So both of you are going to get well. So it's outcomes. And then secondly, indicators of quality. You'll come to a hospital and see how I'm dressed, how I look. Everybody has got their mental of how an institution, healthcare institution should look. Is it clean? How am I received? And so on. That's not quality of healthcare per se. That's quality of service. So that's why I'm saying a lot of these things, when somebody says I've been overcharged, you have got antibiotics that cost 20, 30,000 shillings a dose. And there's some that cost 500. So somebody says I've been overcharged because they were put on the expensive one, yes, but they needed it to be able to survive. So a lot of the time I will keep saying this issue of overcharging. And yet, again, we must remember, healthcare is a product like any other. People make choices. When you choose to live here and go to the top hospital, so-called top 5 hospitals in this country, you cannot go there and then again say that you want to be charged the fee that is elsewhere. And I give the example of a supermarket. Supermarkets, a lot of the time, you've got a whole range of products on the shelf there. So when you want to buy sugar or salt, you look at the prices and you decide which one you want to buy. It has to be the same with healthcare. So you cannot also have a homogeneous fee structure as if this is a homogeneous product.
What you've just explained now, I mean, and I know, is this explained to people? Is this explained? Is this communicated? If I go, short of me asking my medical care provider at that point, my doctor saying, Doc, could you explain this to me? You're saying that I should take this particular medication and explain to me why this over the other. Is this communication given to people when they come at the point of care? Or is it just, look, your doctor is your priest and you're everything else, take what I'm offering to you? Is this communication given? Because I think that's one way then of breaking this thing that obviously is causing a problem. To be able to be open and honest about exactly what it is. And not necessarily because you want to hide anything, but, at that point you're prescribing and we assume that you as a doctor know what it is that you're doing. Is it possible to communicate these things to patients so that you don't get now these blanket statements which you're clearly uncomfortable with, like overcharging and, the like?
Yes, I understand. And let me tell you, after practicing for over 20 years, I've seen the trend change over time. In the earlier years, by the way, the doctors knew everything. And patients didn't even want to ask. In fact, some doctors would even get offended when you start questioning them about their choices and why you put me on this as opposed to this. I think that has kind of changed. Our population is much more informed. Sometimes, unfortunately, also misinformed because of getting information from all manner of sources. But in general, I think there's more engagement between doctors. So it's an issue of, first of all, telling somebody, these are the things that I need to do to be able to make your diagnosis. This is the treatment I would recommend, and these are the various options. And the patient should be able to ask you, so what am I looking at? If I take this cheaper option, what am I looking at? What risks do I run? It's the same thing I say when, for example, before you put on someone on chemotherapy, a patient should ask you, what if I don't want it? What am I looking at? How am I going? So those are kind of discussions we need to have. Patients need to engage more. Doctors need to be more open and also engage more. But as people make choices, a lot of the time, let me tell you, as you walk into a facility, for example, they have posted there what the consultation fees are going to be. You cannot go in walking in there and once you've been treated, then you start saying I've been overcharged. Because there's another facility charging half the price and the public hospital possibly is free. But you can't make a choice and say you want to get a more high-end or what you perceive as a more high-end and again a more expensive product, but want to be charged the county hospital price.
So just in conclusion, Dr. do you as an association agree with this recommendation by the Health Committee of the National Assembly to have this council determining and putting a cap on the fees that hospitals charge and the fees that doctors charge?
Price control should not be put in the private in the health sector, just like in most other sectors they shouldn't. I said the approach that you should adopt, if you feel you want to have, especially protect the vulnerable population who might not be able to afford, provide good health services in the public facilities. Those who opt to go to the private sector, let it be our market forces determine what price they're going to pay. Because if you do this, you'll disincentivize in the investment in the health sector, and even healthcare professionals will say, what is the point of going to this thing if I'm not going to be able to earn a living? I'll tell you a funny thing yesterday. I was traveling in Uber yesterday, and I saw a sign inside there saying, hii kazi ni ngumu, tafadhali lipa bila fujo. I really laughed. Because that's rang true for me, because you've got, first of all, getting to become a healthcare practitioner, a doctor, takes a lot of work, a lot of years.
Sure.
We work so long hours. You can't get to a point where somebody is going to say, now I'll control how much you can earn. Then somebody will say, why don't I become a trader instead, where there's no limit as to how much money you can make. And that will disincentivize
Why don't you adopt that particular mantra as something for your association? Hii kazi ni ngumu. Tafadhali
lipa bila fujo. Dr. Timothy Oloenye, thank you very much for speaking to us. Doc is the Secretary General of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. Asante sana. Hope to have you in the studio soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Daktari.
Keep it right here. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. Hata hii kazi yetu, by the way, ni ngumu. Na hatukulipishi. Sikiza tu. Sikiza tu ni bure. Bila malipo yoyote. Coming up is another conversation. We're going to have a conversation about energy and the focusing on women entrepreneurship in renewable energy in the country. That's a conversation that we'll be having in the next hour. We'll have two guests in the studio. One of them is Millicent Okello and the other one is Rachel Onyango from Practical Action. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Kenya has so far received more than 3.6 million COVID-19 vaccines, with a new cachet from Canada being received at the moment at the JKIA in Nairobi. Health PS Susan Muchacha says the government has paid 2 billion shillings for the purchase of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which will be received next week. The Pfizer and Sinopharm vaccines from China are expected in the coming week as the government works to ensure that the fight against COVID-19 is enhanced. On reports that some people are misusing COVID vaccines, the PS said the government will not allow those breaking the law to do so, insisting that they'll be arrested and prosecuted. President Uhuru Kenyatta has appointed 4 new IEBC commissioners a day after they were approved by Parliament. In a Gazette notice dated September 1st, 2021, the President formally appointed Juliana Cherera, Francis Wanderi, Irene Masit, and Justice Nyang'aya to the positions of IEBC commissioners. The 4 now await their swearing in and subsequent assumption of office. Also appointed are the 5 nominees to the Teacher Service Commission, who were given a nod by the National Assembly. They are Nicodemus Ojuma, Christine Kahindi, Sharon Jelagat, Anseta Wafuko, and Salesa Adano. The appointees are said to be sworn in by Chief Justice Martha Koome. The office of the Deputy President William Ruto has denied owning some of the properties listed by Interior CS Fred Matiang'i. While appearing before the National Assembly Committee on Administration and National Security, the CS dismissed allegations that Ruto's security has been downgraded. The CS listed at least 10 properties purportedly owned by the DP and said that Ruto has been allocated a total of 257 police officers offering security on a daily basis, some manning his properties and businesses.
This is why I said the number of about 51. It could be more than that. For example, Kitengela Gas, 6 police officers. Weston Hotel, about 6 police officers. Murumbi Farm, Transmara Narok, 6 police officers. ADC Laikipia, Mutara Ranch, 6 police officers. Dolphin Hotel, Mombasa, 6. Mata Farm, Taita Taveta, 6 police officers. There is a private residence in Elgon View, we have 4. There's a poultry farm in Eldoret, we have 4. There is a private residence again here in Eldoret where we have 3 prison warders and 1 AP.
The Kilifi County Security Team has launched an operation aimed at finding parents who have not taken their children to join Form 1 as directed by the Education Ministry. Kilifi North Deputy Commissioner Josephat Mutisia says that chiefs and their assistants will go door to door in search of students, warning that parents will be held accountable.
Machiefs na maafisa wa education tuko na majina hao wenye hawajaenda shule kila location, so tunaenda nyumba kwa nyumba, tunawachukua, tunawapeleka shuleni, hasa wale wenye wa shule za boarding wamechukuliwa shule za boarding na wawezi tunawapeleka shule zile za day ziko karibu. Mwanafunzi awe ako na karo ama ana karo, awe na uniform ana uniform, tunampeleka shule.
This is Newswire, Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
There's quite some on Jogo Road this morning heading out into the city, and we're joining with Landis Road headed towards Kamkunji. This is where you'll find a bottleneck trying to get into the city centre this morning. We're also looking at quite heavy traffic along Gong Road. Coming to the City Mortuary roundabout, not sure what that's all about. Langata Road also is piling up quite some as you get to the Timor roundabout. Jogo Road continues to be a thing, especially around the Makadara train station. We're going to look at quite some traffic as we get into the city. All right, we're also looking at Thika Superhighway, where there was no traffic around Survey. Now it's jam-packed, bumper-to-bumper traffic all the way to the Pangani underpass. Actually, further than that, out towards Ngara, into the city at the Globe Cinema overpass. Kiambu Road also, we have traffic way past the DCI headquarters today, and we're already at 3 lanes and counting. It looks like it's going to be a busy one there. Coming out of Westlands as well, quite a lot of traffic this morning, guys, traversing the streets of Nairobi. People need medals after this, don't you think? I do. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, that's how you can get in touch with us. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Yep, and a very good morning to you at 5 minutes after 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It gets into the third hour, and we are glad that you are tuned in this morning. From wherever you are, Charles Uchiagwa is in Dubai. In Mombasa is Blackie. In South Africa is Londiwe. And also Alan Ponjo Matie Ndlovu. Did I get those names right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Yeah. And also in Kimilili is Amos Freeman. And Amos Freeman is saying, today's proverb is killing me. City, please kill Amos again with today's proverb.
This is a man who wants a speedy death, doesn't he? All right, let's provide him with a speedy death. We aim to please. Now, where on earth is that proverb? Anyway.
It's died.
No, I know it off head.
Uh-huh.
What did you do? Did I say off head? Yes. Got it.
Off head on the paper.
Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand.
Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand.
Yes.
Knowledge, water.
You know, you confuse this matter in the morning because
Wisdom.
you started with water and the proverb begins with knowledge. Not water without knowledge. It's like sand in the river, nothing of that sort. It is knowledge without
Water.
Water.
Sorry.
Without wisdom.
It's like
water
in the sand.
In the sand.
Yes.
Okay. A very good morning to everybody who's joining us on KTN Home, who will be with us for the rest of the hour. We have two ladies who've joined us in the studio this morning, and they have knowledge and they have energy. And they're not like water. They're not like sand. Right? Millicent Okello is Energy Program Manager at an organization called Practical Action. And also from Practical Action is Rachel Onyango, who's the Head of Business Development and Communication. Good morning, ladies. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you, Eric.
It's good to have you here, and it's a blessing to have you here with us. What is Practical Action? Who wants to start? Rachel.
I can start.
Yes.
But before we start, maybe I can start with a question to you, Eric.
Okay, please.
So this is a practical lesson.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a cup of tea in the morning?
Yes, it's here.
Who made the cup of tea for you?
I did.
You did yourself?
Mm.
What did you use? What fuel did you use to make the cup of tea?
Electricity.
Electricity, yes. So Practical Action, we are a development organization. And we believe in our rallying call is that we work on development issues, and we believe in the call of big change starts small. And so we work with smallholder farmers in the Lake Basin. We also work with the women entrepreneurs, and we also work with the informal waste workers in terms of ensuring access to water, access to sanitation, and also access to hygiene. Yes, that is who we are as Practical Action.
Okay.
Yeah.
In English? Did you get it?
Yes, I got it. I got it.
Okay, what did you get?
Lake Basin.
Of course you would.
You got Lake Basin.
Mm-hmm.
What did you get?
Informal workers.
Informal workers.
Waste workers.
Informal waste workers.
Waste work, yeah.
Yes.
Who are those? Who are informal waste workers?
Informal waste workers are people who are deriving their livelihood from the waste value chain. So, for example, are they pit emptiers? For example, are they waste collectors? I guess some of us are in the same age group here, and we also grew up knowing that there's a group of young people who always collect paper and take it to recycling plants, and they're paid. So these are people who we call waste workers. Yes. But today we are here to talk about women entrepreneurs in the energy value chain.
Bus.
Yes.
And this is an interesting bit.
Yes.
So we're talking about renewable energy in Kenya.
Yeah.
And then we want to talk about women who are playing in this particular field.
Yes.
Renewable energy, just from our casual understanding, is energy that is renewable.
You're brilliant this morning.
Right?
Eric.
It's just as casual. It's practical action.
No, this man is full of definitions.
It's as practical.
Yes.
Practically speaking, renewable energy is energy that is renewable.
Yes, so you are telling us that you are explaining these things simultaneously, which means one after the other.
Yes.
Surely even you.
What did they say in school about using the same one to define the word?
You shouldn't.
Not allowed.
Surely.
Well, actually, what they would say is that you're being verbose. Yes. A simple explanation would suffice. But when you talk about renewable energy and you talk about energy, the thing that comes to mind readily is fuel, at least in my mind. Because when you talk of energy and you relate to the sun, it bears more relevance when I can relate it to something that I need for my daily use. And when I said I got it, I was assuming that this is what you people are all about.
Yes.
And we're talking about energy that is readily available to all.
Yeah.
And perhaps the scarcity, not of the energy source itself, but of the innovative ways of actually using it so that it can benefit lives.
Yeah.
Okay.
Conversation about renewable energy has been happening in this country for a while.
Yes.
And, pushing towards investment in renewable energy. Okay, are we using solar? Are we using wind, right? Are we using hydro? Or are we talking about the energy sources that are depleting, like
thermal?
Yep. Or like cutting of trees and then using that to as firewood and charcoal. So when we talk about investment in renewable energy, are we talking about those new technological advancements of solar, of wind, or are we talking about other basics?
Thank you, Eric. Sorry. As an organization, our focus is mainly the people who are not connected to the main grid electricity. We are also looking at serving people who do not have access to clean cooking. And so when we talk about renewable energy at the community level, mostly we are looking at enabling access to solar products, for example, to the households that are not able to probably afford the grid connectivity from the main grid provided by the government, or there is no infrastructure at their level that can allow them to connect to the main grid. And so what becomes the next best solution or alternative to them is the solar. So we promote uptake of solar, for example, solar lanterns or solar home systems for better lighting or cleaner lighting. We promote the uptake of cleaner cooking solutions, both fuels and the technologies. When we talk of the fuels, we are talking about the fuel briquettes. We are talking about pellets. We are talking about bioethanol, things that are easily accessible by the people at the community level. When we talk about technologies, we are looking at technologies that are improved. So remember, we talked about people who do not have access to cleaner forms of cooking. So these are not people who are using, for example, LPG. These are people who are using three stones, with firewood to do their daily cooking. These are people who are using, for example, charcoal in a stove that probably is not very well improved or not improved. So
it's not efficient.
Yeah, not efficient. So these are our target. And so what we do is to promote those alternative fuels for example, people are using charcoal. Then what are the next best alternatives? Briquette, for example.
What's a briquette?
Briquette is a fuel that is made from different waste materials, either from plants or animals, or even from charcoal dust, or what remains after you've used charcoal. So from plants, you can use rice husks, you can use maize cobs, you can use coconut shells, you can use bamboo. Yeah, people grow bamboo to just make briquettes. Yeah, there are quite a lot of raw materials that are available that can be used to make briquettes.
But how do you, making them I can understand, but how do you popularize it so that it is accepted as an alternative fuel source or power source or energy source?
Of course, you have to create awareness. Yes. You have to create awareness at the community level. And I think this has been one of the areas where a lot of investments have not been made. It is a clean alternative fuel, falls under renewable energy, but not many people know of it. So what we do as an organization is to try and popularize it by creating awareness on the benefits versus the other conventional forms of energy that they are currently using. We do this through radio, we do this through market storms, we do this through workshops, road shows.
Let me tell you why I'm asking the question. When I first came across this term briquette many, many years ago, I didn't understand it until you explained it. I come from a sugar growing area.
And by the sugar bagasse is also a raw material for briquettes.
Moroni, to be specific. And next to the factory is a mountain. It grows. I have seen people trying to make these briquettes. But what I've often wondered is if it is a ready source of fuel, because it sits there and it grows. How is it then that people who live in that area have never bothered to utilize this thing which they see every single day, and something that it's something that could provide them with something they actually need at a cost they can afford?
True.
That's why I asked the question, how do you get people to understand that these things that you're doing are resources that are available to them, and how do they get to actually take advantage of what is readily available?
True. So as I was saying, you need to create awareness for people to understand the available alternatives. Sometimes people use the non-clean forms of fuel, not because they want, but because they lack information that we have alternatives. If I was, for example, born in a home that we have always used firewood, and nobody has ever told me that firewood is not, has a negative health impact, would I ever have thought of an alternative? But if I get information that using open fires, for example, using firewood produces harmful gases that are causing me health problems, then I would look for an alternative. So giving people the information that they require or that they need to make those decisions is very key in helping people to adapt. The other thing is once you give them the information, you also need to build their capacity in terms of being able to produce. Because if you tell me it is, yes, I can use briquettes, and then it's not readily available in my area, what am I supposed to do? So baking briquette is very simple. So just building their technical capacity to help them understand the process of how they can produce this, even at household level, is very key in helping people shift from the conventional ways of cooking or the harmful ways of cooking to a more cleaner alternative. Yeah.
So even as you're talking about this, and we're also looking at women entrepreneurship and renewable energy in Kenya, this is a conversation now that this is steering towards. And as you're saying these things, and I'm thinking, the people who are around these cooking, that, largely in the country still are women, right? And are often looking for the cheapest alternative to be able to sustain this activity, which must occur in the home setting regularly. So this awareness that's being built, this communication that's being sent, women are then the target audience to say, here we are, and here are alternatives that you can afford and that you can sustain for livelihood. Is that the direction that you would then be going with this?
So in the energy work, we specifically target women. And as you've rightly said, women are the ones who are bear the domestic burden. And of course, cooking is mainly done by women. And so our approach to ensuring that we're targeting women is that we are reaching out to areas where we can find women. So we are reaching out to women groups. We are reaching out to women in their homes. We're reaching out to women in their small businesses, especially in the markets. Also, that's where you're going to find a lot of women running small businesses. And so targeting women also ensures that we are combating the broader health impacts of using unclean fuels, because it's the woman who's waking up in the morning at 6 a.m. to cook breakfast for children going to school. It is the woman who is making lunch for her family if the children are coming back for lunch, and it is the woman who is going to also be making dinner for the family. So if you look at the amount of time that women and girls spend in the kitchen is about 16 hours. Yeah. And so if this time is spent inhaling unclean fuels, inhaling smoke, inhaling carbon dioxide, what does this mean? It means that women, largely, children, and also everyone in the household, because then the smoke, of course, attaches itself to the house, to the roof and what, this greatly affects their health. So our entry point is women, but we also work with men.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I assume that you also work with women organizations?
Yes.
All right. Now, paint for us a picture of success. What you found, what you did, and the outcome of it, and how it is that this worked out in the way that you would actually want to see it work?
I want to be listened to talk about the story of Evelyn.
Okay, just before I get there. So as an organization, we do quite a lot in preparing the women within the energy space. We are economically empowering the women. As much as we are promoting the uptake or the access of these cleaner forms of energy, both for lighting and for cooking, in the process, we economically empower all the women that we work with. And that's why they
I'm going to ask you to explain this empowering, but go on. Yes.
Okay. So, for in economic empowerment, basically we are looking at increasing their income so that they can better provide for their households. Okay. So through the energy entrepreneurship, we do capacity building. That is a very key intervention that we do for the women, both soft skills and technical skills, to enable them run the businesses and also to aid production, because some of the fuels needs to be produced. We do a lot in terms of facilitating acquisition of equipment and all that. And so at the end of the day, what we are looking to have is to have women who are both participating in the clean energy space as actors and as beneficiaries. Actors meaning they take part in the design of these alternatives. They take part in production. They take part in distribution. They take part in providing after-sale services to their clients and to the community members. In the process, they are earning money that they are using to improve the livelihood of their households, taking their children to school, providing better nutrition, and so forth and so on. And so if you ask about what we have done and the result of it, then we can talk a lot in terms of, we have had very many in terms of households adapting to clean energy.
Actually, what I'm asking for is specifically success.
A case study.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, this is this group. It was in this place. What we found them using was this, and we
did this and
we
the
explained
other.
to them this, and we did this, and then this became this.
Thank you. So let me give you an example of Caroline, for example, in Migori County. We introduced her to briquetting or briquette making. We did the technical training for her.
What does the technical training involve?
Basically learning the process of making briquettes. That is acquiring the technical skills.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, like if I talk to you here about briquette making, you may not be able to produce it. But
actually, I will most certainly not be able to produce it.
Yes,
So
but
you
when
have
I
to give
take
me
you
the
through
technical skills
the technical skills, so we gave her the technical skills. Right now, as we speak, Caroline is one of the highest producers of briquettes in Migori County.
What material does she use?
She uses chadust for now. Charcoal dust. That is what she
Where
uses.
do you find charcoal dust?
Where you find charcoal, you'll find charcoal dust.
No, the reason why I'm asking
where they sell charcoal and where they are producing charcoal, right?
In both places.
Yeah.
Charcoal dust.
Yeah.
And the dust doesn't involve charcoal that you've already used for cooking.
So,
No.
So you have your charcoal, and then you see the mound of
The-
dust that you
the
usually
residue
find. The
that-
residue,
yes, yes,
right?
yes.
That's charcoal dust.
That's charcoal dust.
Yeah. Like in a place where they sell charcoal.
Those
What
heaps of black
remains
stuff that you see.
The mountain
that
that
initially
climbs.
used to go to waste.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh?
So we are kind of recycling waste
Yeah.
into
Right.
cleaner form of energy.
Okay.
So she uses that. Right now, she's the highest producer, producing quite a number of bags. The demand is so high that she cannot even be able to meet. Her income has shot.
Now you say clean energy. Charcoal dust is from charcoal. Charcoal is not clean energy.
Yes.
So how does charcoal dust become clean energy?
So when you get the charcoal dust,
Yes.
you through the process
Yes.
of making the briquette. Of course, there is the compacting.
Yes.
When it is compacted, dried to remove the moisture, and then used. One, it allows for complete combustion or full burning. So when it allows for full burning, then it reduces the chances of carbon emission. So it becomes a cleaner form of energy. Two, it does not even produce smoke.
So what you're saying is that this charcoal dust produces a fuel that burns at a much higher temperature.
Yes,
So
very
it-
high. Actually, it hits higher. The rate of how do you say it? It hits higher, or it's hotter.
If it heats higher, then it means it's a far more efficient form of heating because you don't need very much of it to actually.
And it stays hotter
Yes,
for longer.
it stays hotter for longer.
Mm.
So it is efficient. It is money saving. It you use less of it.
Mm.
It helps you to reduce or to take care of waste
Yep.
in the environment.
Yep.
And it's something that we can always get. So it is renewable.
So let me tell you where my mind is going.
Mm.
Charcoal.
City,
Yes.
I want us to take a break.
Then why don't we take a break?
Yeah. It's 27 minutes after 8. Time for us to take this break on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and online. Having a conversation about women entrepreneurship and renewable energy in this country. Millicent Okello is the Energy Program Manager at Practical Action. And from the same organization is Rachel Onyango, who is the Head of Business Development and Communication. Okay? We're talking about renewable energy, clean energy, and getting people to buy into this whole conversation. We'll be back shortly after taking this break. Take a look at the weather and traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi Lokop is Jeshi Lawokov?
I can't say it very well. No,
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
There's still a cloud
The
over the
weather
Nairobi skies
with
as we
Spice-
come down to lows of 13 today, highs of 23. Looking into Nakuru, mostly sunny at 16, highs of 24, lows of 14. 14 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's raining at 15, going to highs of 22 today. It's sunny out in Kisumu at 21, highs of 29 and lows of 18. Kakamega this morning is sunny at 22, highs of 28, lows of 15 today. Looking at Malindi, light rain at 27, highs of 29 and lows of 25. And it's also raining in Mombasa at 24, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Kampala sunny at 21, highs of 26 and lows of 18. And Dar es Salaam very sunny at 25 with highs of 30. It'll come down to lows of 22. Lagos is rainy at 22. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 28. And Kinshasa in mostly cloudy conditions this morning, highs of 30 and lows of 22.
Spice up your life.
We're in the middle of traffic hour. See quite a lot of it right in the city now, where it was clear before. All roads lead to the CBD today, in and outbound. On Gong Road, for example, getting to the City Mortuary roundabout, that clogs up just a little bit. We're also seeing a lot of traffic on the Thika Superhighway past Survey today. For some reason, it's quite heavy there. Inbound, quite a thing. Also, we're looking at industrial area, Lunga Lunga, piling up, connecting with Likoni Road and also joining the Likoni interchange on Mombasa Road. So that goes all the way in. The southern bypass is also quite packed as you're getting into Langata Road. Go a lot further. Use that Kikuyu option, rather use that Gong Road option. to get into the city because you will get stuck on Langata Road. We're also seeing traffic on Jogo Road today. Makadara, the station, a little bit there, but then as you get towards Landis Road, it's not too sticky. I think that's a good thing. Let's keep an eye on things this morning. Help us out. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Conversation continues
Nairobi.
at 28 minutes to 9. We have in the studio Millicent Okello from Practical Action and Rachel Onyango, also from the same organization, talking about focusing on women entrepreneurship and renewable energy in the country. As we were taking the break, something came to mind, City.
Yes, I was thinking of a phrase I hear very often and I read about. It's called a carbon footprint. Charcoal trees. Charcoal represents dead tree. Dead tree represents a little
Reduced
disturbance
footprint.
in the so-called ecosystem. Burning charcoal adds to carbon in the atmosphere. Now, we're talking renewable energy, we're talking clean energy. And I'm looking at this vicious cycle, and I was thinking, okay, let's start with the charcoal. Instead of selling charcoal, why don't we just think of making all that charcoal dust? So that, well, this is my thinking. Because you can grind that charcoal and it can become dust, can't you? Yes, so I'm thinking, what if a step was taken, instead of waiting for the dust just to accumulate, why don't we fast forward the process of this dust actually being available?
So cut a tree, instead of burning charcoal, burn charcoal dust. Burn charcoal and then
produce
grind
the
it to
charcoal.
dust.
What I'm saying is, from what we've been told, if you have charcoal dust, remember this is a residue, you are likely to produce a far more efficient fuel, which means you probably need to cut less trees to produce less charcoal, to produce dust. Just my thinking. Now, let me conclude my thinking by saying this. At the end of this story, do we have a situation where we are talking about planting trees and ensuring that, yes, since we understand this cycle, the process of renewing this particular resource, which comes with planting, outstrips the actual usage of this particular product? That is where I was going with my thinking.
Thank you. I think in our work, we advocate for environmental conservation. And of course, we want as much as possible to reduce deforestation and promote planting of more trees. We have these conversations with the people we work with at the community level, because we'll help them to understand, or we work with them to understand the negative impacts that cutting of trees has had in the environment. And why, this is even why we give alternatives of what you can actually use to make even the briquettes. You don't have to rely on charcoal dust, for example. There are other readily available materials that have been put to waste for a very long time, like the rice husks. They are burnt. I mean, they clear the fields, for example, in Ahero, and they burn them. At least in some other places, I've seen them being sold, probably to farmers. Yeah, but in those sides, you find that they burn them actually to clear the field to come and do planting again. So we are providing providing information about other alternatives that do not necessarily members of the community do not necessarily have to rely on charcoal dust for briquette production. And remember, even when we talk about promoting other alternative sources of clean fuel, we're not just narrowing down to briquettes. We have talked about bioethanol. It's also a clean form of fuel, though not produced by our entrepreneurs, because the cost, of production, the equipment, it's very capital intensive. Probably the entrepreneurs we work with may not be able to produce at their level, but they are part of the distribution channels at the community level to ensure that that will be a very good transition for a person, for example, who has been using kerosene stove, moving to bioethanol. Yeah, and it is a cheap form of fuel.
Yeah.
It is available. We have organizations that have come up and they are promoting this. They have even opened outlets that looks, like the M-Pesa agents within the community. I mean, even within town.
Right.
That even when you live in a place that, or if you do not have the capacity, for example, to acquire an LPG, this could become a very cheap option for you.
I don't see the concept, and maybe I don't see the concept of making the move difficult for anybody to grasp. I mean, it's a very easy sell that somebody knows, okay, here's this fantastic thing, it's working. For me, what would be the thing is the communication and the building of awareness, awareness building around this.
Yeah.
Like you've just said something I think is very interesting. Moving from kerosene use to bioethanol, for example. It's probably a safer form, a cleaner, a more efficient form. But the thousands of people who use kerosene on a daily basis would be the targets who would need to understand that maybe this is something that you could use. And I'm only assuming, perhaps you can correct, if it is also a cheaper form than kerosene, for example. So how do we get this information, not just to people who would be entrepreneurs, but then the end users as well, who would say, this is something then that I would want to pick up on. Because for me, it creates an entire cycle that without that communication, you wouldn't be able to achieve.
I want to add on to that question. This conversation has taken place for many years, very many years in this country. And when something is a direct solution, people don't need to be told very many things about it. I mean, especially, you're talking about women. Women see something and it makes sense, they buy into it. We see women coming together in merry-go-rounds, in table banking, in chamas, and they basically are able to move with something. Why is it that it's taking so long for many people to see these other solutions as solutions? What is it that's an incentive, for example, for any person to say, all right, so I'm going to stop using this kind of fuel. I'm going to adopt this kind of fuel. What is it? Is it cost? Is it health? Is it efficiency? And all those things, why are they such a difficult language?
There are quite a number of factors. And I'll go back to the point that I was talking about in terms of lack of information. You see, the negative impact that comes with, for example, using non-clean forms of fuel is not something that you'll experience instantly. It takes time, right? It takes time. And probably after some 10, 20 years, that is when you start to feel the negative impacts. So when you come with an alternative and somebody has not felt the negative impact, so it needs more convincing for this person to transition or to move from the form that they are currently using to the next. Those that have already gotten the message and they understand very well the negative impact that comes with non-clean forms of fuel or household air pollution. Of course, we've had improvements or progress in terms of adoption to cleaner forms, but we still have people who have not yet. And probably because of the cost issue, the cost comes into play. Some of the cleaner forms of energy that we are advocating for, the initial acquisition cost, for example, could be higher for this person.
Prohibitive.
So it's limiting, it's prohibitive, and so somebody would rather continue with a koroboi that I'll go to the market and get at 30 bob, and on a daily basis I'll buy mafuta ya 10 bob and continue.
You see there, Millicent?
Yeah.
I think there's a point there. It's not for lack of awareness of that if I continue using this koroboi, if I continue using makaa or kuni, there could be health issues and complications for me. It's not for that. It is for looking at, so what's the alternative? And if the alternative is not reachable for me, I'll just continue using this. As long as you're saying, I am not going to fall sick tomorrow because I used a koroboi today. Then we're kicking the can down the road. Human beings are used to that. So the challenge then to address is what is this other thing that is disincentivizing people to take up the fuel? They have the information. Even if today you went and preached every day, unajua ukitumia koroboi, respiratory diseases are on the rise. In fact, you even come with numbers. Angalia, this ward, these people is because you'll see it. But if the alternative is not something that's reachable for me, I'm not going to take it.
Exactly. And that's why the key players within the energy sector, especially when it comes to lighting solutions, we've seen a lot of improvements, a lot of progress in terms of the models that they have developed to ensure that people have access to these alternative forms of energy. So, for example, if you look at solar energy, we have the PAYGO system that currently now allows almost anyone to access a cleaner alternative source of fuel for lighting. So, for example, you'll go and deposit 2,000 shillings and you get a home system, a solar home system that allows you to have light. You can charge your phone and you can even watch a TV. And on a daily basis, for example, maybe you just need to pay 40 shillings or 50 shillings. And so that becomes easier for people to adapt or to embrace. And we have seen a lot of change and a lot of progress because of this kind of models that enables people to acquire them at a very cost-effective way. And slowly, the model is basically based on what you're using daily to buy paraffin, for example. Please use it to pay for the product that you're already using. And it's working, and quite a number of people are adopting, and we are happy for that. And when you look at clean lighting, for example, we have made very big strides. Globally, even globally, we have less than a billion people right now without access to clean lighting solutions. We are still lagging behind with clean cooking. Of course, we are making progress, but not at the rate at which we would want it to be.
What hinders you from doing that?
Quite a lot. I think the solutions. There are quite a number of factors around it. So there are people who argue that, for example, because cooking is more, it's more of a women affair. And for a very long time, women have not been involved within the decision making in terms of designing, in terms of production, in terms of distribution. Then it has remained. They're just the way Eric is saying, they're just there in the market, but we're not accessing them. Probably because this thing they say, it wasn't participatory. I didn't take part in it, so it's not going to solve my problem. Who told you to come and build this one like this? This is not how I wanted it, On the other hand, lighting is for everyone in the home, including the man. And so men, of course, put a lot of effort, including at the household level. They will be the one to buy the solar home system. Whereas, because they are not always in the kitchen, they do not know the struggles that the woman goes through. And so if the man is the breadwinner within the household, and he's the one with the money, and he doesn't understand the struggles the woman goes through at the kitchen level, do you think he'll be able to invest in a clean cooking technology, or he'll give priority to something that serves his own interest?
It makes sense what you're saying. I'm also just looking at it from, there could be something else.
Many other things.
There are many other things. If you look at the merry-go-rounds and the chamas and the self-help groups that have been formed by women for home improvement, women have used this to buy utensils. They've used this to buy water tanks. They've used this to do very many things domestically. Okay? They could still use the same to improve on going into clean energy. Why aren't they?
They are doing it now. And that's why it's also important to have distribution channels or structures within the community that allows these products to penetrate, to penetrate at the community level. When these products came into existence, most of them were, especially the ones that are being made by the big manufacturers, they were at the supermarkets. How many of our people, for example, in the rural areas, go to the supermarket? I just go to the nearest kiosk to buy my sugar, salt. I don't make it to the supermarket as often. And this product, that is where it is found. So when we formed structures to allow the products to penetrate to the community, and the structures includes these women groups, the women entrepreneurs that we are working with. These are the structures that have been formed. So the products are now trickling down to the community where they are needed. Our own women have become producers, designers of improved cook stoves, for example. They have become producers of the same stoves within the community. And so we are seeing change slowly taking place. Adaptation is taking place. Of course, it is not a Kenyan problem. It is a global problem because of the many issues that surrounds it. But with a lot of effort, awareness creation, penetration into the remote areas, then we will see a lot of change and a lot of progress as we continue.
Is it difficult to embark on this? I mean, is it capital intensive, Rachel?
To embark on?
On, for example, all these things that we're talking about, women making the cook stoves, women making the briquettes, thinking about the solutions that it can use.
Yes.
Is it capital intensive?
It is capital intensive, Eric. So, for example, given the choice of coming up with maybe 500 shillings to be able to buy briquettes, vis-a-vis going to the roadside and picking up firewood, what is a peasant farmer, for example, most likely to choose? On their way to the market, when the children are going to school, and we also see this in schools, they are told, come with firewood. And the use of unclean fuels is not only at the household level, even institutions. Look at our boarding schools. For those of us who went to boarding, what was being used to cook our foods then and even now? It's still firewood. And so I just want to elevate the conversation Millicent was having about having women at the table, having women as decision makers. So even in the home where women don't have such a strong voice to be able to determine how the household income is being utilized and where it's being prioritized, we also see this at the national level. So who's in charge of policy? Who is sitting around the table making policies? Are women on those tables? And who is taking decisions on what we are going to invest as a country in terms of clean lighting and clean cooking? So, for example, who is at KPLC? The government rolled out a very big, put a lot of investment in connecting people to the grid. But who was behind this decision? These are people who this affects them. As Millicent said, they need lighting, they use it, so they're going to put money into that. Can we see the same energy being put in investment on clean cooking, for example? So you find that, for example, like we have street lighting. We have a lot of rural communities being connected to the grid. But how about the government also putting in a lot of investment in awareness creation, in production, in materials to be able to really advance clean fuels such as briquettes, pellets.
The government actually does
even
bit.
LPG.
They have policy. Then they have development plans. And if you actually go to the government level, what you suggest, you'll actually find it exists, but it's on paper.
Implementation.
Yes, you have ministries that actually understand this thing in great detail, and they can even tell you, when they talk to you about it, you realize this person has knowledge. You mentioned something that touched a nerve. Many schools still use firewood. Have you done any work with institutions, not just schools? And if so, what did success look like? So that, because what you're saying, a school would be a greater consumer of some of these fuels that we consider to be unhealthy than just an individual.
True. And so we as Rachel mentioned, we not only focus on households, access to clean forms of fuel, we are also looking at the SMEs accessing the same. We're also looking at social institutions accessing the same. And so, for example, in Busia and Bungoma, we worked with over 40 social institutions, which included colleges, schools, hospitals, to just promote the access of cleaner fuels. And the response was very good, very good. And imagine within the two counties, in a span of less than 1 year, we were able to actually convinced more than 40 social institutions to transition to clean cooking. So it means there is opportunities, even for the business, the energy entrepreneurs themselves.
Yeah.
Business is there. Social institutions are key clients who would buy in bulk. The case of Caroline from Migori County that I talked about. Right now, she cannot serve the domestic clients because she's serving social institutions. They're coming for her products in bulk. So we have ventured into social institutions. We have promoted the uptake of this, and we are seeing very positive response to it. And of course, as an organization, we cannot reach,
you can't reach
everybody within the country. And so this tells you that there's
And why not?
capacity in terms of resources.
No, in terms of planning and thinking and forecasting and looking ahead, why not?
So?
Because systemic change needs everyone.
Exactly.
The why not is still going to stay.
It still stays. For example, in 2017, the World Bank approved a project and they decided to put in money into Kenya, $150 million US for clean energy projects in the country, solar specifically. There's a project being run by the Ministry of Energy called the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project that is benefiting from this $150 million US from the World Bank. When it was launched, it's actually supposed to be private sector led. Private sector think of solutions. Private sector apply for funding from the World Bank. Private sector get funding from the World Bank. Roll out your projects. 2017, 2021. Can we talk about this innovative, apart from the financial side, where you can see innovation in the financial side, getting access and financial access to these products? Can you talk about any other innovations in this sector that have taken place that you can say, this has grown like wildfire? I keep saying, if a solution is clear to somebody, you do not even need to preach to them 3 times. I see something, it makes sense, I will take it.
And you can see the benefits.
Yes.
Eric, you'll only take it if you have the capacity to do so. So if, for example, today you see a Porsche here and you do not have the capacity to take the Porsche, you can only admire. So even when we develop mini grids and you bring them to, at my gate, and I cannot afford the connectivity fee, it will remain there.
Which is why I'm asking that question, because this is not just being government-led. Government is supporting. World Bank is supporting. Private sector, business, is executing. Private sector cannot come up with a project that they know will not pick up. Okay? And if you do, then you have to keep innovating until you get the customers to buy in. Why is it taking so long to buy in? Is there a difference between what the private sector is thinking and what the market is thinking?
I think in terms of providing solutions, the solutions are there, and we all agree to that. The problem is in terms of access, right? And that's why I was saying, for example, you would bring up to a pole, an electricity pole, behind my house, and I will still not drop the wire. Because 1, I do not have the capacity. 2, even if I have, you promote or you subsidize, and I need just to pay a small amount to drop it. There are regular charges that I will keep on paying on a monthly basis. If I cannot afford them, why should I why should I take the connectivity? So there are a lot of factors. And remember, electricity, for example, has become very expensive for the kawaida wananchi. There are a lot of charges that comes with, electricity. If you pay, for example, if you're buying tokens and you look at the different breakdown, it's. I pay 5,000.
We're not talking about electricity. We're talking about off-grid solutions, like
yes.
the one you've been talking about.
Yes,
today.
So
off-grid solutions.
That is
like
true.
Yours.
That is true, Eric. So it becomes expensive. So the mini grids will, if for example, the mini grids you're talking about, they need connectivity, and they'll be charging just the way electricity charges.
So then it's not an alternative, cheaper solution then?
It will not be alternative. It will not be cheaper. Because 1, you need connectivity. And because these are, they are kind of private developers, they have invested a lot of resources, they need to recoup their investments. Of course, they will charge. Eric, they will charge. And so it will not be for free. So at the end of the day, you will still have to pay for all those costs that were incurred in the installation of these particular mini grids. So it becomes a challenge for many people to do the connectivity. Mini grids are working in some places, especially where the main grid has not reached. And people within that particular space has the capacity to, for example, do the connectivity. It works. But remember, we talked about our focus being the people who have not been connected to electricity. People probably who do not have the capacity to access this. So what are the next best alternatives that are available for them? It is what they can afford.
Yes.
And that is what we are talking about, the solar lanterns.
Yes.
We are talking about the solar home systems
Yes.
that have innovative ways
Yes.
of ensuring that they can access.
And all these fall under the off-grid project.
Exactly.
You're the one who's introducing mini-grid. Me have been insisting on off-grid, which is what the program is all about.
No,
Off-grid.
the World Bank
Solar
project that you
issues.
mentioned.
Yes, it's about solar solutions like those ones. It's about other ways in which people can actually access energy. Let's take a break at this point, though. Just say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us since the top of the hour. We've been having a conversation with two ladies from Practical Action, and we've been very practical about accessing energy and involving women in entrepreneurship in the energy sector, especially the clean energy sector. Kenya's biggest conversation continues on SpiceFM 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, Malindi is 97.7. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
So as we conclude the conversation, what is it that you'd like to speak to? I speak now to people who are listening and tell them, okay, we have all the possible solutions to clean energy in the country. And this is how then you can just take up the solutions.
Mm-hmm. Of course, as I mentioned, it calls for all of us to participate. It calls for collaboration. The private sector, the media, houses included, the government and the civil society organizations, that's where we fall. It calls for all of us to put our efforts together. For example, the media will be a very key partner when it comes to awareness creation. Yeah. Just ensuring that our people understand the benefits that comes with adoption of clean energy. Other civil society organizations, we call upon them to embrace a similar approach, working with the communities, working with women at individual level, at group level, to just ensure that the message is home and the products penetrates the markets where they are needed. Of course, the government should take lead even in this, ensuring that, of course, it is in their Vision 2030, ensuring that everyone has access to clean forms of energy. They should take lead in ensuring that this happens. Our work is basically to complement what they do.
What the government is doing.
Yeah. So,
Millicent and Rachel, thank you very much for joining us today. Hope to have you again soon in the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Millicent Okello is the Energy Program Manager, while Rachel Onyango is the Head of Business Development and Communication at Practical Action. A very good morning to you. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Kenya has this morning received 358,000 AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines from the Canadian government, bringing the total number of doses received so far to 3.6 million. Health PS Susan Muchacha said the government would receive additional doses of Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer and Sinopharm next week. Muchacha said the vaccine should be administered for free, further warning that action will be taken against health facilities charging for the vaccines.
I will not tire to say that they are free, whether in a private facility, whether in a faith-based facility, whether in a public hospital, or whether in a designated vaccination site, because we do designate a site where vaccinations are done as part of an outreach program. It is therefore illegal, immoral for anyone to take advantage of this process for purposes of political gain or for profiteering.
Chief Justice Martha Koome is expected to swear into office the 4 candidates who have been appointed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. In a Gazette notice dated September 1st, 2021, the President formally appointed Juliana Cherera, Francis Wanderi, Irene Masiti and Justice Nyang'aya to the position of IEBC commissioners. These, as National Assembly Minority Leader John Mbadi called upon the 4 to ensure that they sit with the current 3 commissioners, Chairperson Ofula Chebukati, Commissioners Abdi Gulie and Boya Molu, to ensure that the Commission's operations are streamlined.
We want these 4 commissioners to get into IBC, sit down with the other 3 and correct any misdeeds that the other 3 commissioners probably have done. And Mr. Speaker, if that is done, then we would be happy with the process. The process leading to the election is as important for the integrity of the election as the actual voting and the declaration of results.
Garissa Township MP Eden Duale urged the commissioners to serve Kenyans diligently and ensure that they are not influenced by anyone.
We don't give this kind of jobs to cowards, that when the seat is too hot, you take the next flight. That should not be the case. We had 4 commissioners. 1 took off at the wee hours of the most controversial elections in 2017. The other 3 went to a hotel somewhere in Pan-Africa and just resigned. Mr. Speaker, you don't put, if you're a commissioner, don't put the country into a crisis.
6 police officers linked to the murder of 2 brothers in Kianjokoma, Embu County, are expected to appear in court today to answer to charges against them. Yesterday, the High Court rejected a petition filed by the 6 police officers demanding that the bodies of the brothers be exhumed and re-examined. The officers were arrested after Benson Njiru and Emmanuel Mutura were allegedly killed after being arrested by police for allegedly violating a curfew order. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Traffic still continues on Mombasa Road this morning, heading out into the city. Actually quite slow. Not too bad, actually. I think it's probably one of the better days that we've had on Mombasa Road this week. We're also looking at traffic in the city centre. Langata Road also continues with that issue. Coming out of Westlands, we still do have heavy traffic. Heavy traffic on the superhighway today. Not quite sure what the cause of that is, but we're going to find out in a bit. Kiambu Road also quite heavy, connecting with Muthui Square, heading out towards the Pangani Underpass. That's about the size of it. That's what it looks like now. Let's keep an eye on things. Half hour or so, we should be out of traffic hour, but we'll let you know what it looks like. Let us know as well. You get into a sticky spot, we'll see what we can do in terms of information about alternatives. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 5 minutes after
only way
9.
to
Kenya's
start your
biggest
day.
conversation. It continues. And thank you very much for keeping it locked. Nyangano says he was following the good conversation. However, I have a feeling we can not talk about environmental conservation while promoting charcoal briquettes, since they work in rural cases, in areas. Can this organization consider biogas and briquettes from animal and human wastes? And I think they said the same. It's not just briquettes from charcoal.
No,
it's
no, it
briquettes
isn't.
from very many other forms of wastes.
Yes.
Like talked
You're
about
talking
rice husks.
You're talking about maize husks. You're talking about coconuts.
And animal waste. Well, they didn't mention human waste, but animal waste they did.
Yes, human waste also comes into it.
There are organizations that have actually gone into this.
I actually know of an organization working even here in Nairobi that has done that by producing eco-toilet and at the same time from those very toilets producing energy.
Yes.
And that company is called Synergy with a SY. Yes.
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 The ones that do eco-toilets.
Yes, they do eco-toilets as well.
IKO toilets. That area of Muhoroni, I will talk about it again because there's somebody who was asking about it, City.
Just next to the factory, actually.
Yeah.
There's
because
a mountain.
Bonotti was asking, ask the good ladies if the byproduct of sugarcane usually thrown outside mills can be used for briquettes.
It is not, can it be? I can answer that question. There are people whose farms are literally next to that particular mound. I've seen people making briquettes, but it's in such small quantities.
That you wonder why the uptake is
Yes, but when I say it's a mountain, it is a mountain. But there are people who I see making briquettes of it. But given the enterprise as I have seen it, maybe in the time that I've been absent, it has increased. But it isn't it's not something to write home about. You get the impression that it's just for domestic consumption. And yet, with that raw material that I see, it ought to actually be the driving conversation in that particular area because the raw product is there, staring at you.
Yeah.
And more is produced, by the way.
Every day.
Yes, it's produced.
Okay. Let's start with the day's proverb then, as we begin the hour.
Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand.
Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand. We have knowledge. We know we need to go into cheap, clean energy. Wisdom. What do you got?
You know, the gentleman who talked about charcoal and trees and environment and saying, you really can't have this conversation. Actually, you can, and I'm going to explain why. One of the things that we've seen ravaging many countries are what we call wildfires, okay? And something that has been in that discussion, that arena of discussion has been preventing the natural fires that arise, not just from heat, but from little twigs falling to the ground, leaves drying up. There's a natural process that often happens in that environment where fires sort of like burn foliage that has wasted away over time. Now, when you prevent it, it builds up. Now, when it builds up and then you then have a fire, it's something that you cannot actually control and it has no benefit. The argument being those fires have their benefit. It has a renewing benefit to it. Now, in the same way, when you're talking about trees and harvesting trees, it's like everything else. If you plan and you organize that the harvesting has to do with the replenishing, or rather, you harvest, but the replenishing exercise is even more vigorous, so that for every tree that was cut down, maybe 10 others were planted, then it wouldn't be an issue. Charcoal becomes an issue, not just from the carbon emission perspective, but it's because it depletes a resource which is not renewed as effectively as it ought to be.
Or as quickly.
Yes.
Yes. Because it takes a while to grow a tree, And here, if you're looking at wastes and things like that, you have waste everywhere, every day. If you're looking at animal waste, it's, a 24-hour kind of thing. So I think that's what you're saying, that the solution needs to be towards saying, where can we get a constant supply of the raw material? And those are available. A constant supply of the raw material that will actually provide you with a more efficient, consistent, and sustainable resource.
Yes.
And it seems really simple. That why then wouldn't we want to go in that direction?
Anybody who grew up in the rural areas, or at least spent time in the rural areas, will know that nothing was actually ever wasted.
Thank you, CT, because that was where my mind was just a few minutes ago. And I was thinking about my mom's poultry, right?
Yes.
And she had a garden at the same time.
Yes.
And so there was the manure that came from the chicken droppings that would be used in the garden.
Yes.
There was the sawdust that we used then that would be used to make compost.
Yes.
And so, as you say, nothing was wasted. So even the grandmother whomever is sweeping up the compound, that dirt was put in the fire and it was continued to use even for cooking as you add your firewood.
Yes.
So it looks as though it may sound retrogressive, but we're going back to how traditionally we were doing things, which actually might be the more sustainable thing, even if we're looking into the future.
It really was very sustainable because apart from people didn't go around cutting down trees for firewood, not really. No, they looked for dried twigs, dried branches. That was firewood. You didn't cut it and then dry it so that it becomes firewood. No. The commercialization element is what brought this about.
Right.
Okay? And dried, once the cob was out, okay, you've taken the maize. The cob that remains, firewood. The stalk that remains, firewood. So all these things, there was nothing, as I said, that actually went to waste. Cow dung was fuel. Cow dung was also building material.
Yes.
And manure.
Yeah.
Yes. And it really made some really cool houses. Literally cool.
Literally
as in,
cool.
Literally.
In the heat of the day.
Yes,
indoors
literally
was-
cool.
Yeah.
Yes. So it isn't as though it wasn't understood. It was understood. But the key to it is these resources were always replenished.
Yeah.
It is the non-replenishing of these resources and just consuming them that puts us in this tricky situation that we're in and brings about these discussions of climate change, carbon emissions, and all these things that we keep discussing. Yes.
I think the what I was even pushing as we were talking with the ladies is the organizations that are working in this space need to also maybe take a step back and look at what is the market saying.
Yes.
When the issue was about access because of financial ability, then you came up with now these solutions using technology. So M-Pesa has come, so you come up with M-Cop or whatever, right?
Yes.
People are now able to take the technology and pay slowly as they use. And that has caught on very well. Those companies are doing very well. Now, in terms of these other solutions, what is the barrier really? Because people can see a solution. People can see, I mean, if I use this, it's going to last longer. If I use just 1 briquette, 3 briquettes, they're going to cook more than if I had a whole gorogoro of charcoal. People can see the solution. So what's the barrier? If it's cost, how can that cost be addressed? So that people don't feel, this, if I compare, I spend 50 bob to buy 2 gorogoros of charcoal, and then I have to spend 150 bob to buy the 3 briquettes. I don't have the 150, much as I'd like to go clean. How can that be addressed? If those challenges are...
And also, there's, you see, thinking of providing solutions to the village is actually a very good way of starting something because, as you sometimes mention, you give it an opportunity to be organic. But something that people buy into, they will not need you.
No.
Do you go and consult Safaricom every day about using M-Pesa?
Today I'd like to buy some airtime. I'd like to send some money today. Can I receive? No.
You quickly understand how it works, and then you get to using it.
And in fact, you'll be taught by your neighbor.
Yes.
Safaricom will not necessarily have to come and show you how
It's
to
the
use it.
experience of another that will show you how
Someone
you
will
will
say,
practice.
I use this. Ebu, show me how to do this. They will show you because it makes sense. Somebody will ask. Somebody will be at hand to explain. You don't have to have barazas and workshops and meetings to convince people that this is a good thing. If it's good, it's good.
Eric, you do not know just how sensitive and clear a nerve you've actually touched with what you're saying. Because if you think in terms of what the citizenry actually want from their government, it isn't a lot. It isn't. And if that was met, the citizenry will do what they already do. We'll get on with our business.
Yep. Meet the basics.
Yes. And what are these basics?
Well, I think the basics that people are looking for are the basics when you look at your basic needs. That really is it right now. Can I eat? Do I have shelter? And then if you go further, can I be taken care of if I fall sick? In the event that I fall sick.
And if I have children,
can I take care of it?
Can I
send my children to school?
Yes.
Can I take them to hospital if there's a need?
And that is taken care of by if I have a means of earning a living.
Exactly.
Yes.
And now this means of earning a living, have you then made the environment conducive so that it will not be too difficult for me to do this? Even if I'm not working in a job where I'm asked to be there certain hours in the day. If I am plying a trade if I'm doing, can you make it conducive for me
Yes.
to do it? That's it.
Or
The struggle people
yes.
will do.
Is it possible for you to ensure that what I earn can actually help me maintain my keep?
Right.
I'm not asking for a lot of money. No. It doesn't have to be a lot. It's
You
just
wanna
that
get by.
I need it to be able to sustain me.
Yeah. You don't
Is
want
it
to
possible
struggle-
for you as a government to lower my cost of living? What do you need to do to think in terms of making sure that when I say, instead of buying bread for whatever it is bread costs or milk, whatever it is costs, can I buy it for 20 shillings?
So can you make
Instead
it
of-
easier for me to then survive, pay you what I ought to as Caesar,
Yes.
and then now use the rest to survive and keep some for a rainy day? I don't really think that people are asking for more than that.
No.
So make it easier so that I struggle. Now, the extent or degree to which I struggle is up to you as an individual.
Yes.
I can keep going because I want to accumulate more, or I'm all right with what I have. Now, can you make the environment so conducive that the person who just wants to go on the hamster wheel and get, everyday sustenance can do that? And the person who wants to go beyond that now is aspirational. They too have an opportunity to do that because you've made the environment conducive. At whatever level, whatever cadre, whatever scale you are at, that's what people are really asking for. Can you
And-
just make it possible for me
Yes.
to do this?
Meaning, this subject of opportunity and the discussion of opportunity, can it be a reality? So that when I think of aspirations and I think of the things I want, and usually people grow up, they become parents, the aspiration is now for their children,
Right.
not just them. Is it possible for me to actually paint this picture in my mind and I can see it with what I have? Because part of the problem is with what you have, you can't paint that picture. It doesn't matter what colors you use.
And in this case, with what people have currently, it doesn't really matter how thin you slice it. It's just not enough. That you find yourself in a constant deficit. And we're not just talking about actual hard cash in your hand, but you find yourself at a deficit more often than not. That, okay, you know what? 2 people in the house are sick, right?
Yes.
Let the child get treated. I will make.
You'll,
I will be fine.
you'll suspend your illness or your
ailment,
feeling or the
or you
treatment.
ignore it completely
Yes.
because you just can't afford it. So right now we have folks who are operating on deficit, not just cash in hand, but deficit of services, deficit of that environment conducive enough then for you to survive.
Yesterday we had an inconclusive debate here about whether our government understands the needs or the priorities of Kenyans. When you were talking about the National Assembly Committee summoning Interior CS Fred Matiang'i and the police bosses and everybody else from the Interior Ministry and saying their focus is whether the Deputy President has police officers or whether he has police officers instead of police officers. That was the reason for summoning the Deputy President. And remember, we were asking ourselves, are these the priorities that Kenyans have? If you were to ask the Limuru MP, if you went to Limuru and asked, you sent your member of parliament to represent you in parliament, is he representing you and your pressing needs today when he is dealing with this particular issue? We also even turned it inwards and said, when the media highlights this as the main thing today, are we in touch with what the pressing needs of Kenyans are? The headlines today are just about Matiang'i exposing unmasking hustler. Matiang'i exposes the DP's property. Taifa Leo says hustler bandia. What does the Star say?
Ruto, most guarded DP with 257 cops state now.
Business Daily has something to do with the same.
Oh yes, they actually put it inside Ruto's security.
Okay.
Front page.
So when you're asking yourselves whether these are the priorities of Kenyans, maybe we should actually now just ask our audience, what are the top 3 priorities or the top 3 needs of Kenyans?
What do you need?
Yes.
What do you think is most important to you, really? And more so, perhaps we should take a little look at ourselves, a little inward looking. Instead of asking, let's ask ourselves a question, how relevant are we as the media right now, given what it is that the country is going through and what they have?
Right.
Yes, are we? Please go ahead.
Are we really mirroring, are we giving a reflection of what the heartbeat of Kenyans is right now? Are we showing by what we are saying, by what we are printing, by what we are talking about? Are we talking about what Kenyans are really thinking about on a daily basis? Of what they hope a leader would then provide would make ready access to, would create a conducive environment around? Are those the issues, or is it this? When somebody is on the road going home every day, thinking about their children and thinking about their health and thinking about the future and trying to save and trying to buy a sustainable jiko and thinking about how I can make briquettes and make life better, is this what we're thinking about? 257
police officers.
Police officer. Is that the true reflection of where Kenyans are right now?
Okay. So let's open up the phone line. 0719-012-600. What are the top 3 priorities that you have as a Kenyan? What are your top 3 pressing needs as a Kenyan? And then we also now, going with that, we ask you, do you think our leaders understand that? Do you think the media understands you? Do our leaders understand you? Does the media understand you? What are the top 3 pressing needs of Kenyans? Today, 0719-012-600. Let's have this conversation. Let's have as candid a conversation as possible. If your need to make sure that the government is stable, and stability of government means that you make sure that the deputy president is well guarded, that is a priority, and it makes sense if you can explain it. If your priority is something else, let's just hear. Dr. Omar in Kilifi, good morning.
Good morning. Awesome trio. How are you doing?
Very well.
And how are you this morning, Daktari?
A little bit better than yesterday.
Good to hear that.
Yeah. I am off today. I'm off the whole of this week, actually.
Okay.
And sorry if I keep on bombarding. I called yesterday. I called the other day.
No.
Today.
This is where it hurts.
But you guys are quickly becoming one of my favorites.
Kabisa, you are also one of our favorites.
Thank you. So my contribution today, I am a medical officer.
Yeah.
I work in a private facility in Kilifi. I live in Mombasa. My wife is also employed with a good salary. So I would say in Kenya we are actually among the most one of the few privileged people to be in the upper echelons of income earning capacity. But it is so frustrating, it is so frustrating that the focus of the country is totally elsewhere. According to me, the most important priorities should be healthcare, security, and economy.
Whose security?
Us, the people's security.
Okay.
2 years ago, I was carjacked. I lost my vehicle. Mpaka to date, my neighbors, I live in Chuda, are very affluent, but it is kila saa ukienda kwa neighborhood community unasikia mtu fulani amekuwa robbed, sijui nini. In Mombasa there is Kisauni, Wakali Kwanza, every time people getting chopped left, right and center.
Yep.
In Nairobi paka police officer, sijui kama ilikuwa true ama ilikuwa fake, uliona simu ili so the security of us,
Yep.
The economic situation, how many rent is going up every now and then. Food is almost impossible to purchase. The cost of living is just ridiculous, compared to even 3 years ago.
So those 3 things, Dr. Harry, healthcare, security, and economy, do you think the government is in touch with you and your needs? Do you think the media is in touch with you?
First of all, the government is absolutely not in touch with the reality, completely. They are so far off. Meaning yesterday I narrated a small story of my personal situation, of my pain and heart.
Yep.
When I was passing past Tana River, to be honest, hiyo utaona hata it's not even Kenya yani. Unaona? In a hospital unaambiwa nenda kanunue gloves. Daktari anakuambia nenda kanunue gloves so that I examine your patient.
Wow.
Wacha hata dawa, wacha hata hiyo Panadol. Go and buy gloves so that I examine your patient.
Yep.
I had also wanted to call a bit earlier, especially to pose a question to Dr. Tim, Dr. Timothy.
Yep.
is that it is true you cannot control or put caps to the private health practice. Yeah, Kenya is a market economy. But there are some sectors, even though it is a capital market economy, there are some sectors you can actually control actively, especially important sectors like healthcare.
Yep.
Yes, sectors like healthcare is very, very fundamentally important. What about ethics? I didn't hear him talking about ethics, for example. Yes, we are here to make profit, but at what cost? What is the ethics of that? Me as a doctor today, I am governed by very strict values of ethics. Will I put consultation at 10,000? It is ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, we need to have a serious conversation, and the media need to take the forefront. They should forget about this garbage and distractions and constant politicking. We are in a constant state of politics.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Omar.
Thank you.
Asante sana. Thank you for your contribution. Kennedy in Kisumu. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Ndu and City and Eric?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for me, the three ailing things: healthcare, food security, and economy. Because you go to a hospital and you can stay there for the whole day of being looked upon. And maybe if it's something, an emergency, they might consider.
Yeah.
But if it's normal ailments, you might sit there for the whole day. That's the situation in Kisumu right now.
Thank you very much.
And every now and then, prices of everything are going up, and there is no money in the people's pockets. So, put two and two, we are all going down the drain. All the Kenyans right now, everything is so hard right now. And in terms of what the government is in, if the government is in touch with the local community, like they live in Brussels and they live in Kibera, so that's the difference. That's the gap between the government and what the people are feeling right now.
Thank you very much, Kennedy. Asante sana. We have an issue with your line as well. Dr. Majan in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
I'm very honored to be given this opportunity to contribute.
Yep.
Perhaps in making the healthcare affordable and accessible, one of the things that the government has got to do is to put a price ceiling on medicine and some of the pharmaceutical products. You'll find that this is done very well, even in South Africa, in India, and even in some of the Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah.
Every pack of medicine says this should not be sold for more than this much.
Yeah.
So that is one way of containing costs. And then containing costs of other pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical and equipment, like waiving the taxes that are put on some of these things will be one of the ways that costs can be contained. And of course, the hospitals and the providers would argue that other prices of things keep on escalating. One of them is the cost of energy. Perhaps the government has got to remove all the taxes that is lumped on fuel, for example. Like right now, one of the things that they are going to do, they want to come and say we are going to pay toll charges. But perhaps Kenyans and the government has forgotten, one of the reasons why toll charges were removed was that there was a fuel charge which was levied on fuel, so that all the toll charges will be removed. But the talk is that they are going to bring these toll charges, in the very near future. Now we come to the next issue. What is the priority of Kenyans? Of course, that Dr. Umar has put it very well. But I will say that the discussion that was put yesterday about an individual having 270 guards, or like an individual having all this property, and where do we get the money for the other services?
Can I please ask you a question?
Yes.
If I may, what do you think are your priorities? Let's not talk about generally about Kenyans. If I were to ask you today,
No.
as a Kenyan, what do you think are your priorities?
My priority, first of all, one is security, then health, then means of sustenance. But I want to bring this conversation, turn it the other way around. Where do we get the money for all this? Our neighboring country, how have they addressed the issue of security? They will say it's only, let's say, for example, the president and the service commanders and possibly the deputy president who are entitled to certain level of security. But the rest of the security, you go to all the roads, all the roads have got policemen on beat.
Yeah.
So that overall, there's a spread of the few number of security officers guarding every Kenyan, so that security is ensured. So that from one end of the road to the other end of the road, you find a policeman on the beat. So that when there's anything in that area, the area can be easily secured. That is one way. We have to remove the security from all these people who have got 200 policemen, 300 policemen, 400 policemen, and put them on the beat so that the whole entire country is secured.
Okay.
Three, where do we get the money? I used to see President Moi, the late President Moi, when he was vice president, he used to have only 3 cars. Minimum 2 cars and maximum 3. So that will mean if he's traveling with security, he'll only have, let's say, in every vehicle, if there are 4, that's a maximum of 12. Or let's say 4 times 2, 8. But if you have somebody, even just a cabinet secretary, having an escort and everything, 20 vehicles, you multiply that 20 by 4. So all the policemen will be on the road and guarding that person. And the other countries, what they have done, they've put a standard operating procedure. Cabinet secretary, by law, will only have 1 vehicle. Every other person will have, let's say, it is stated. You don't have 20
But my brother, conversationally speaking, your point is really valid, but no cabinet secretary has that number of vehicles that you mentioned. For conversation's sake, yes, we can say there are many, but they don't have 10, 20 vehicles. No, it's probably 1, at the most 2.
The number of vehicles that is escorting that cabinet secretary, you see it on the road. If now I'm on the road, if I meet my governor
security
here,
and other hangers on.
Yes. So that added the cost. So if we manage to save this, we'll save the number of guards, escorts guarding them and bodyguards guarding them, and that money now can be put into other useful service sectors, health,
in the economy,
education, and so on and so forth. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Marjan. Have a lovely day.
Thank you too.
Asante. Joseph in Nairobi.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I struggled to listen you from China, but I didn't manage to tune online.
Yes.
Now I'll start with me.
Uh-huh.
My first priority: conducive environment to do my business. Security inaingilia hapo. Everything that will allow my business to be done peacefully. That's all I want. Secondly, we come to education. We need to facilitate education for the genius, for the clever, and for the normal people. You may think it is the same thing, but these people are all different. I tend to think and to realize that the most genius people never get the light education in Kenya. And the clever ones, they are less privileged, and the normal people goes to the best schools. So you find hapa Kenya unaweza pata tu yule mtu ako na job mzuri na analipwa, ile akili anafaa kuwa nayo iko na jamaa mwingine ako huko River Road. Okay. So I don't know how that can be. I don't know how that education can be divided. I don't know. There's something that needs to be done to that.
To identify the capacities and then.
And for that to happen, we also need now the genius guys to be on top. And you hear now, they are the ones who get the least education. Total confusion. If you educate all the Kenyans and give them the light education, according to how they are
Yep.
or how they are created. We're going to be on another level within 4 to 5 years.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Asante sana. Kenya's biggest conversation, 25 minutes to 10. What are your top 3 needs and priorities as a Kenyan? And do you feel as like the government understands these needs? Is the media also reflecting these as your top 3 priorities in the daily coverage of news? This is what we are asking you, 0719 012 600. Let's take a break. How are the roads looking like? Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation. The weather with SpiceFM.
Cloudy conditions continue in Nairobi at 17, highs of 23 and lows of 13 today. Nakuru, sunny at 18, highs of 24 and lows of 13. Nyeri is raining at 16, highs of 22 and lows of 14. Kisumu, sunny conditions at 22, good highs of 29 and lows of 18. Into Kakamega, it's also sunny at 23, with highs of 28, it'll come down to lows of 15. It's raining in Mombasa at 26, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Light rain in Malindi as well at 27. We'll go to highs of 29 and lows of 25. Looking then into Kampala, it's sunny at 24, highs of 26 and lows of 18. And in Dar es Salaam, light rain now at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 22. Lagos this morning is raining as well, 22 going to highs of 28. Kinshasa's cloudy at 23, we'll see highs of 30 coming back down to lows of 23. Out in Beijing, it's sunny at 30, that'll be the high for today, down to lows of 20. Paris is sunny at 13, highs of 25 and lows of 13. And London is cloudy at 15 with highs of 19, it'll come down to lows of 14. Cloudy conditions at 17 in New York, highs of 24 and lows of 15.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so the traffic still continues in those expected spots around the city. Hopefully we'll open up as we get out of traffic hour in a few minutes. We still have a little bit of a holdup of traffic inbound on Mombasa Road. And that Thika Superhighway issue is looking a little bit better now, but still hot and heavy all the way from Survey out towards the Pangani underpass. Everything else seems to be moving along not too badly as would expect at this time of the day. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. Yes, SpiceFMKE on Twitter, text 40127.
Spice and everything nice. All right.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
20 minutes to
Nairobi.
10, 0719 012 600. What are your top 3 priorities and needs as a Kenyan? That's the question we're asking. Social media.
Maureen Jola says security in terms of education, health, money, a conducive environment to do business. Teodoro says, number 1, a corruption-free Kenya. Number 2, good leadership. And number 3, a clean environment. Amina wants money, power, and respect. This power, I don't know.
Money, power, respect.
Yes, that's
3
it.
things.
Patrick says healthcare, a vibrant economy, and jobs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's looking for. The reason of insecurity in a country is brought about by disgruntled citizens. You are unable to feed your family just because you have no job, yet the person next to you has it all. You will commit a crime to make ends meet.
Okay. Nelly in Mariakani, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're very well, thank you. How are you?
I am fine. Now, my contribution on my top priorities.
Yes.
I think topmost would be health, followed, of course, by security, and then education.
Okay.
Yeah, and my thoughts are on the, was it the proverb this morning that knowledge
without wisdom
is like water in sand.
Yeah.
And I think exactly, sorry to say, that's what the media are doing. They got the knowledge, but then when they put the headlines, it's like water sifting through the sand because it only feeds the top cream. Yeah.
So we lack wisdom.
The things, no, not that you lack wisdom per se, but...
Do not be afraid. If you think we lack wisdom, tell us.
Why are you being like a Kenyan?
Because I am Kenyan. I'm not Kenyan.
Jinga, unajua kuna upungufu tu ya nini kidogo tu. No.
I'm not Kenyan by choice like Ndu. Yes, I am Kenyan. So the things that affect Kenyans are largely, as you said yesterday, in the page 7, 8, 9. The security of the normal Kenyan, the education system, and the health of Kenyans. Yeah, those would be my high priorities.
Asante sana, Nelly. Have a lovely day in Mariakani.
Same to you. Bye.
Abraham in Nairobi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, you guys are doing a great job.
Asante.
I really enjoy it.
Thank you, sir.
My top priorities would be number one, education. I think it's a travesty that in this day and age, when you call somebody for an interview, especially the young ones, people cannot articulate themselves properly. Either in English, Kiswahili, mother tongue, and we are the foremost country in our region. So, education, agriculture, it's also a bigger travesty that in this day and age that we still have annual famines.
Yep.
Which can be very avoidable, yeah? And healthcare.
Spot on.
Yeah, though I would go overboard and also add on security as number 4. Because we can be bullied by our neighbors very well. Yeah?
We can be bullied.
Ethiopia, yeah, we can. Like when Migingo went away, what did we do? Yeah? These are our brothers, these are our cousins.
We chose peace.
No,
we are a peace-loving
we knew that
country.
We would be beaten squarely. That is what we knew. That is what we did. We took the bigger way because we knew that we would be beaten squarely. Even in Somalia, we can't really survive without AMISOM, yeah?
It's very strange you should mention Migingo because one of the most interesting aspects of that island, much as there was a claim that it belongs to Uganda, whether it's the administration or even the health services, it's actually provided by the Kenyan side. Yes, I say this from a position of knowledge. I know it's a fact. So it being in Uganda is a point of discussion, but everything practical about it is
Museveni told you, it's okay, the rock is Kenya, but the water is Uganda.
My point is, if we had a stronger security service, Museveni would not even dream of doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abraham.
Education, agriculture, healthcare and security.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Zachary in Nakuru, good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Zachary, I wanted to ask you a question before. First of all, good morning. And how are you today?
Morning, my mother. I'm okay. I'm as fine as a fedora.
Bas. You've answered half the question. The other half of the question I was asking, did you have any after effects after you had your vaccine, your vaccination?
When I had the effect.
Yes. Did you have a headache? Because there are people who've said they feel feverish, they have a headache.
Some bit of very far or, there's a headache, mild headache, just that.
Okay.
But I'm okay, and I'm calling everyone to go and take
Please carry on with what you wanted to ask us. I've already asked my bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, and I hope all of you are good.
Yes.
We're all fine.
Okay, thank you. Now, let me say this. When I go to this estate, this gated estate, and I see the amount of security that everyone is trying to put for himself, there is a wire, the electricity, the concrete walls, you know, I feel like I'm in hell, yeah, where Satan is about to stab me. And I ask myself, where is humanity? Why do we go all these lengths to actually secure ourselves? Let me say this, yeah. Why should a person who is serving the public be so guarded as if his body is made of gold itself, yeah? It shows that he is aware that the people he is reading are poor. They even don't have means to eat, let alone buying helicopters or whatever. And therefore, this is a time bomb. It's a time bomb that if this trend continues, the masses will overcome the security that everyone is trying to surround himself with, yeah? Therefore, let us actually concentrate on the basic priorities. That is health, security for everyone, regardless of his status, and education, agriculture, and so on. And let me say this, Mr. Eric, please, if you allow me. I have seen, I enter into the internet and, see what people are saying. And I'm noting this trend of these young millennials who think I think they have paid some punctures somewhere to attack each other, yeah? To attack their opponent. But they have overstretched their imagination, And I was actually angered yesterday when I saw some people trying to use derogatory language as to why Mzee Jomo Kenyatta's mausoleum is guarded. Let me say this. There are people who have studied security issues, and the police force and the military and the whatever are some of those people, yeah? They have got reasons as to why they guard such a facility, yeah?
Yeah.
And they were using some very unprintable words, like Mr. Kenyatta. They should know that despite their political persuasions, there are people who founded this nation, and we have got our traditions of the country, and therefore they should respect such people.
That's good. That's a true point.
I don't. Can I say something before I finish?
Yeah.
If I were Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, okay, that person, yeah, of Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, yeah, I would actually take action against those. Now, personally, you don't have a right to insult somebody who did so much for this country and limit them even when they are dead. No, that is not good.
Okay, Zachary, thank you very much.
Thank you and have a nice day.
You too. Karanja in Naivasha, and then we have Amani on the line. Karanja, good morning.
Good morning, Eric Du and City.
Good morning, Karanja.
Yes, I went to school in the late 90s, late 80s, and finished at the early 90s. Now, one used to say, peace, love, and unity. Without peace, you cannot do anything. Compare Kenya today, the peace that we have, and Afghanistan. Number two, love. If you don't have love, you cannot live with your children at home, you cannot live with your wife at home. Even the working conducive, the working environment in your workplace, without love, you cannot achieve anything. Number three, unity. If you don't have unity, you cannot go further away. You have so many corners that they say, without unity, the parliamentarians, if they don't have unity, to pass a bill that you are discussing about health, the private health clinics, that nothing can happen. In Kikuyu, we say, thank you very much.
What does it mean?
Unity is everything.
Okay. Unity is strength. Thank you very much. Amani in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Du. Good morning, CT.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And corruption, and corruption, and corruption. Those are my three.
Corruption. End.
Yes.
The end.
Knock it a block, yes. And we'll be doing so well.
Mm.
You'll be surprised. Service delivery, things will flow. You want a job, you get it on merit, not because you're so-and-so and so-and-so. Hospitals will be fully equipped, all medicines. The economy will be flourishing because it'll be above board, above the table economy, not under the table economy, where nobody knows where money goes and where it comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, so corruption, corruption, corruption.
Good 3 points.
Moral and physical and material in every way possible.
Does the government understand? Does the government feel you?
They don't care. Because they don't have to care. Yes, that's why they don't feel me. They couldn't be bothered. They only feel me when it is in their interest to feel me or you or anybody else. Yeah, otherwise, really, because they are corrupt, their minds are corrupt, they don't care. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
Unfortunately. And this security issue, I mean, it's totally blown out of proportion, perhaps, but I think there is merit to it. In terms of, let's say, what's his name again? WSR, William Samoei Ruto's security. Yeah. This thing has to be sorted out. As far as I know, security for presidential persons is highly specialized, more specialized than any other general security. No matter whether it's part of the same general policing group, it still has a slightly different specialization. So I think, and this is all over the world, so I think let's not mince words. That's what it is. And we need to recognize that perhaps these are things that our governments have done since independence, frustrate people, intimidate them, do all sorts of things just to make people feel uneasy, just to evict them or, send them away or somehow, because they can't do it legitimately through the Constitution. So they use these scare tactics. So I think we need to be clear about that.
Thank you,
specialization when it comes to presidential, security. All right. Thank you, guys.
Lovely day.
Thank you very much.
John Mwangi says a conducive business environment, beefed up security, and good circulation of money. Maureen, security in terms of education, health, and money, good environment, a conducive environment to do business. So if you just look at what people have been saying, healthcare has been repeated many times. Security has been repeated many times. Food security has also been repeated many times. And now education as well. Economy, and corruption. These are needs that people feel that this is what we should be addressing. This is what we should be talking about. And healthcare is being repeated so many times that it tells you, okay, so that is the conversations we should be having are those. If we talk about what Dr. Tim was telling us in the morning, private healthcare providers are sorting out 40 to 50%. When your health, the health of a nation, is actually almost 40% in the private hands. What does that tell you about?
It's not almost. It's actually
40% and above.
41%
in the private sector.
And when you say private, you're not talking about faith-based hospitals or NGOs.
Nope.
If you add those, then you'll actually find they are even more than what the government is actually doing.
Yeah.
That isn't a good
You'll
picture.
find that the government is only doing about 30%.
Exactly. And there are many, but there are many examples to
if
show.
it's 40 only private, you can imagine faith-based are many.
Yeah,
they'll
there's
do
no
20%.
I mean, there's no way the government is doing more than that.
What you're saying is that healthcare, 50% of it and above, is not in government hands.
It's not in government hands.
Yes.
So we don't have a public healthcare system. We don't have a public transport system.
There's something that was mentioned by our friend Zakaria. What do the high walls tell you? The ever higher walls and the proliferation of private security guards. What does it tell you?
Security issues. Insecurity is at a high.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's on the increase. Every other day, a new security company with an even funkier name than the one before it.
Right.
Yep. And it tells you, so there's a community here that the community feels that the distance between this community and the nearest police station is far. The capacity of the nearest police station to be able to address issues in case of a security emergency are low. And that's why we have to put up our own high walls and spend a lot of money paying a private security person so that they are there 24/7. Somebody there 24/7 with all the additional things do they have a button that they can press in case of an alarm? And this button is not going to their police station. It's going to their headquarters. Their vehicle will respond faster than the police.
The police. And you're willing to pay the extra because you can't depend on the police. It's not a sad state of affairs.
No, it's an extremely sad one. You know, there was one which was sad and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah.
In the Moi era, when we had bought, you've heard me say this before, a fleet of vehicles. And one of the things that those vehicles were known for was the lack of speed.
Trot along.
Yeah, I make a parody of it and I say that if you're on a bicycle, you didn't need to bother. You could ride faster than that car.
You talk very derogatively about that car. Those cars were fast. It's only that you're comparing the fact that we were coming from Land Rover to these ones.
Eric.
In terms of being hardy and sturdy.
Eric, those cars were hardy, steady, and
fast.
And the demarcation of hardy and steady is that they were extremely uncomfortable. But fast. Those cars. Goodness.
Did you ever outrun them? Maybe this comes out of personal experience.
I outwalked one. I mean, you are talking of running. In fact, I always want to ask the guy, why didn't you just leave this car and walk with me?
Let's go. Oh, wow. Okay.
No, I'm being facetious. That is the fact. I'm actually being facetious. But the point I'm trying to make is, when you have a situation where you call the police because you have a problem there and tell you, sorry, we don't have fuel. So you pause and say, so I'm under attack. So you want me to leave my house so that I can facilitate this fuel? I mean, so this, my under attack is a side issue.
It's not an issue.
Yes.
I don't have fuel. That's the problem.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But that, some people tell me, City, that's a thing of the past.
Okay. Yeah. Not completely past, but it's the situation has improved.
No, it has improved tremendously.
It has improved seriously, especially now with the leasing of the police
that
motor
is
vehicles.
what made the big change.
You don't see those dilapidated police motor vehicles anymore. They're very good on the road. So the needs of the people: healthcare, security, economy, food security, conducive environment for business, education, and corruption.
What Kenyans want.
This is what Kenyans want.
That's what they say they want. Yes.
Drama.
Even our editors are listening to this, so it's a conversation we'll have again with them as well. CT. Knowledge.
Without wisdom,
like we were told.
It's not water without sand. Let me repeat it. It's knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand.
Like water without sand.
We're not talking about a filtration system here, my friend.
Okay.
He actually thought I was going to respond to that one.
Yeah, that's why I decided to just help.
We live in hope, don't we?
Always.
We have to.
We must.
We have to. And make sure that you live with that same hope and see you tomorrow. So why did you pick this particular proverb today?
Because it was simple and straightforward.
Oh.
Yes,
Sometimes
and I was
that's the way
thinking,
to go.
you know,
the
application of knowledge sometimes, because it's like you have the facts, but you can't interpret it. The interpretation and the application of it is now, that's how you enter the realm of wisdom.
Okay.
Yes.
Yesterday you said today you're going to come with proverbs from Mount Kenya. So is this from Mount Kenya?
I did come with a proverb. I just didn't mention any of them.
Okay, join City Muga tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Kenya's biggest conversation. We thank you very much for tuning in. Now until 11, some good music. And then from 11 until, 3?
3.
Yep, Sugar and Spice. And then Quatch comes at 3.
Yes.
With everything
Spice.
nice as he takes you home on Spice Drive. And this is Edward Quatch. And then the adults in the room come in at 7 until 10. Until tomorrow, have a lovely day. Good morning. It's now 10 a.m.
Spice up your